Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. I hope that your evening and your rest after our declassification extravaganza last night was outstanding. Very glad to have you here and with us as we return. We've got Markwayne Mullin, the Secretary of Homeland Security, presumably coming out with an election integrity crackdown in the aftermath of what we learned from the president yesterday. And if you missed us, we read through most of the documentation that was released yesterday, dozens of documents that were released related to 4 different buckets of information about how problematic our elections actually are. Of course, we talked about the election and voting machine and ballot counting system problems in the first big dump. Then we also heard about China's acquisition and exploitation of American voter data. 220 million voter files and a lot more. We looked at the files, a lot more, all gobbled up. And then the deep state hacks at the FBI and elsewhere covered it up. And we've got a lot more information on this woman coming up very soon today. Nikki Flores from the FBI. So we'll listen to what Markwayne has to say. Then we'll learn more about her. We'll then talk about what is going on with the FBI and in Fulton County, where there is some reporting that they're looking at using some perhaps AI systems to flesh out what exactly is going on with the ballots and more. But we're waiting right now for Markwayne Mullin to come out. They said they'll be here at about 11 a.m. Sometimes that's more like a suggestion than anything. And so once he gets going, he kicks things off. We'll, of course, be here to get into it. Now, looks like the AP actually has the scene. So he'll come out and emerge very soon. And we'll see which angle gives us the best camera angle. Which feed gives us the best results. So it's going to be a great day. We're going to talk about that. We've got FBI stuff, election stuff, talk about Nikki Flores. We'll see what else the other reaction is that is all now percolating throughout the interwebs after last night. We've also got a story on Ruben Gallego out of Arizona. And so it's going to be a lovely stream. Now, a lot of the cables don't seem like they're covering this. Maybe they'll flip over to it when it comes on. But my understanding is even, Fox News didn't want to talk about this last night. Sean Hannity was on. They covered the Trump speech. And then as soon as they cut from the speech, they talked about other things, Iran and other things going on. Not all that interested in this story. Of course, Fox News paid out the booty to settle some big claims, almost $1 billion that was funneled out. So they're not all that interested in this. And the leftists apparently are not interested in election integrity. They would just rather the Chinese and the Russians come out and continue to interfere. But we're not interested in that at all. And so there was some additional fallout from last night. And so as we're waiting for Markwayne to get on out here, let's take a look at what John Ratcliffe had to say. This was, of course, released by the CIA current director. And he said right after Trump's speech, he posted, to support President Trump's transparency initiatives, the CIA has taken significant steps, including providing declassified documents for public release, protecting our democracy and the integrity of our elections from foreign influence and interference. And everybody's having a big fight over the words. The standards are changing everywhere we look. There was another journalist who was asking questions of John Solomon, who's been helping with a lot of this. And he said, oh, so your files show that no votes were flipped, which is just a false premise. That's one way to rig an election. But you don't actually have to have evidence that somebody went in, took a Trump vote and flipped it to a Biden vote for that particular voter in the particular machine. Of course, that would be problematic. And it sounds like they can do that based on the documents that we read yesterday, because Smartmatic was facilitating that in Venezuela. And they had contracts apparently in 400 counties, according to the docs that we read. So that is possible. But that's not the only way to rig an election. Okay, all you got to do is do it legitimately. You just register. I mean, it's illegal, but you still do it legitimately. You just use the systems that are currently in place. You don't have to change a line of code if you can falsely register people like we saw they were doing in Michigan, in spades, filling out fraudulent registration forms and submitting those materials into Jocelyn Benson, who I'm sure rubber stamped a large part of those, which is why she's fighting so hard to prevent anybody from actually looking at her lists. And so it's rigging, it's fraud, it's interference, it's influence. I don't know why we can't all agree that we want all of those things to be stopped. And we've got a clip of 20 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing. 20 minutes of Democrats saying the Russians did it. And by the way, I don't want the Russians to do it either. They said that the election was stolen from Hillary Clinton. Okay, great. We think it was stolen from Trump too in 2020. So can we agree? Can we come together and actually just pass the SAVE Act? Can we all just get along on this one? If you want to win, do it fair and square. But the litany from the Democrats is now being reversed. They don't really want to talk about it anymore. You remember Hillary Clinton, there's 20 minutes on this thing, and many other people talking about just how problematic this was. We'll come back to that. Markwayne just came out. Let's listen in. And let's swap this sound over.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. You know, President Trump is correct when he said that election security is national security. And one of the greatest privileges I have is being Secretary of the Department of Homeland. And part of that is that we secure our elections. You know, it surprised me when we first started getting in and digging into the elections, and this isn't about rehashing the 2020 election. This is just exposing what took place and to make sure it never happens again. And there's some really easy steps that can be taken to secure our elections. And it shouldn't be a partisan issue. This should be something that every American, regardless if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're an independent, you're a libertarian, regardless if you live in a blue state or you live in a red state, everybody should know that their vote counts.
True.
And we have individuals that are voting that shouldn't be. It cancels out someone that should be. So I want to go through some things in a little bit more depth than what we were able to expose last night, because President Trump, he hit the highlights, and those should be scary for everybody. What we're going to do is dig in just a little bit deeper, and then we'll take some of your questions. So first of all, Department of Homeland Security, we've identified 250,000 non-citizens registered to vote in just 4 states.
Crazy.
Mind you, we have 46 other states. And just 4 states, we've identified 250,000 non-citizens registered to vote in California, and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Nevada. We also worked with proactive states to identify 28,000 non-citizens on their voter rolls, plus 400,000 individuals that are still registered to vote that are deceased. Now, these 23 states, they proactively worked with us on the SAVE program. That's Georgia, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, Idaho, Alabama, Missouri, Louisiana, Kansas, Arkansas, Wyoming, Montana, Iowa, Florida, South Dakota, Indiana, Arizona, South Carolina, Utah, Nebraska, Michigan, and my great home state of Oklahoma. What's interesting to me is we're getting pushback from activist judges that are saying that, hold on, the SAVE Act or the SAVE program, they are trying to put a stop to. Currently, because of the SAVE program, we have a pending appeal because activist judges are saying what? They don't want to secure our elections? Once again, how is this a partisan issue?
She's from
This
Trinidad.
shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Yeah.
This should be that any judge and any God-fearing individual that loves this country should want to make sure that our elections are secure. And we have created inside DHS the SAVE program that allows states to proactively look at their rolls. And so when you have 278,000 individuals that are non-citizens registered to vote, plus 400,000 that have already been identified just in 23 states, what can we find? We have all 50 participating with us. We know, talking about our machines, we know for sure that our foreign adversaries, not our allies, foreign adversaries have parts that are vital pieces in our voting machines. We know that they can access what they consider the key to the back of these machines. We know that they can change voter registration and your vote. We know it's possible. There's not a question. It's not even for debate. One thing that I love about numbers and I love about facts is they don't lie. This isn't something that I'm trying to tell you to spin a narrative. This is what is going on. And what we are saying is that every state should partner with us to work to secure this. Once we identify the problem, everybody should be informed. Working with Secretary Lutnick, we are going to make our security enhancements mandatory, meaning that if these states want a grant and they want to be reimbursed to work or to run federal elections, they're going to have to implement security issues.
Good.
Just security issues. We're not trying to get into anything else, but we're saying that the machines have to be secured and that your voter registration list needs to be scrubbed. We need to make sure that individuals that are legally able to vote are voting. We know that Iran hacked our state voter files and attempted to compromise, is the best word I can use, our systems where military members used to vote. So we're working with Secretary Hegseth and the DOW to safeguard those systems and protect our military voters. What's frustrating again in this is that the Biden administration knew this. And our intel community knew this. And not only did they withhold it from President Trump in his first term, but they withheld it, it looks like, President Biden in his term. They withheld this information from the public. They withheld it from Congress. That should never happen again. And because of President Trump's leadership, we're not allowing that to happen. We're telling the American people not to scare them, but to ensure them that we are watching it. We're taking it serious. We will secure our elections. Underneath President Trump's directive, he has gave Department of Homeland Security and myself the tools and the resources we need to secure the elections. But we have to have the states partner with us. If they choose not to, then the voters should hold them accountable. When I was sworn in just over 100 days ago by President Trump, and I can tell you honestly, I haven't quit smiling. I think this is the greatest job that I could possibly have. I said at that time that I'm going to fight for your yard and your backyard like I do mine, regardless if it's a blue state or it's a red state. Department of Homeland Security isn't just keeping you safe on your streets, but we're keeping our voters safe and our elections safe. But we can only do that if we have full participation. Right now, as I said, we only have 23 states participating with us. Out of just 4 blue states, to repeat that number, we found 250,000 non-citizens registered to vote. So for us, we're going to take proactive and reactive measures. At President Trump's direction, our cybersecurity team and CISA will release an updated election infrastructure plan, and it'll be public within 30 days, meaning that'll give the states the resources they need to help from the cyber side. From us, if they participate in the SAVE program, we'll provide the resources and training to support state election integrity. We're not trying to change the outcome. We're trying to make sure that American people can trust our voting system. Real ID does not prove citizenship and does not give you the right to vote. You must be a U.S. citizen and you must be eligible to vote. Before and after the election, we will scrub all election records looking for illegal aliens and those who are ineligible to vote, including those that somehow voted, yet they were deceased. If you're illegal and attempted to vote, or you tried to vote illegally for someone else, we will find you and we will charge you. Illegal voter registration and illegal voting both carry penalties up to 5 years in prison and up to $250,000 in fines.
Yeah, so don't do it,
We
punks.
will pursue maximum pressure on this. To let you know, we will be proactively looking at early voting, and then after post-election, we will continue to scrub all those that did vote. Those states that don't participate with us, they have public records of those that voted, which is where we found the 250,000 from the 4 states that don't participate with us. We will go through those records one by one, and we will pursue everybody. We will make sure that people know they can trust our elections. If states want the grant funding, to recap, they must secure the elections. I want to thank President Trump's proactive approach to this. He has put together a remarkable team that not only is informing the public about what's going on, but we're also informing Congress, we're informing our states, and we're going to secure our elections. States must be aware of the real threats for voter registration and the system breaches. And I do want to reemphasize the system breaches. Our machines are vulnerable. There are steps that can be made right now that can secure those. I would ask not just the public, but the media. That question should be asked of blue states, because we have red states participating with us. We have some red states that aren't. Every state that's not participating with us should be asked the hard question, why not? What are you afraid of?
Losing.
If they're not willing to do it, it should raise serious questions.
It does.
It's not that hard. This isn't a partisan issue. So in conclusion, to recap, under President Trump's leadership, DHS is well prepared to support all states, red states, blue states, and local election officials ahead of the midterms. States must do their part to secure our election systems, and we stand by to help. If you are an illegal or you're voting illegally, we will hunt you down, we will find you, and we will prosecute you. The American people must have confidence in our elections. Election security is not a partisan issue, and Homeland Security, we're here to support everybody. The American people, the states, even the media, to get access and the information they need to hold the states accountable. So with that, I'll open up for questions. Yes, ma'am. I think I like the Daily Caller better than the Daily Mail. I really don't like the Daily Mail.
I'll take it. We're on the competition with each other. There's about 3 months until midterm elections. I'm sure people are watching President Trump's speech last night, and watching your remarks today, and they're feeling uneasy about casting their vote in the midterm elections. Can
First of all, great question. Thank you. When we start talking about can we ensure that the midterm elections are going to be secure? Yes, we absolutely can build confidence in the American people, but the states have to do their part. I will tell you, if the states that choose not to participate with the state program and they choose not to participate in securing the elections, we will make sure that we make those states a priority to look at who voted in their states and hold then the election officials accountable. If the election officials, once we gave them the information they need to secure their elections, and they chose not to, then those individuals can also be held accountable by fines, by penalties, and even, depending on how far it goes, prison time.
Jail, baby.
Let me get the follow-up question, and I'll
That's
get
why
to you guys.
Adrian
Hold
is
on
so
one second.
freaked out.
The president has mentioned that there were intelligence officials who covered this up and kept it from him and President Biden. Do you have an estimate of how many intelligence officials were involved in this?
There's no question the intelligence community from the FBI, CIA, and even other places within DHS, not underneath President Trump's leadership, but that was underneath the Biden administration, kept it from President Trump and the American people in Congress. We are currently going through those lists. We will hold each one of them accountable. Some people aren't here. Some people are no longer in the agencies. Those that are, we will be held accountable. Those that abused their role in this will definitely be held accountable, because there is no excuse. If you purposely disobeyed the law and you purposely went around statute, then you have an accountability. You have a legal reason to be held accountable.
It's sabotage.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Sir, I have not heard that at all, but we understand that it's being investigated, and we'll allow the investigation to go through. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yes. I got it back here in the back.
Thank you so much for doing this briefing today. Is there any analysis on what went wrong with CISA in 2020 and the premature analysis that was the most safe and secure election? It's now been revealed that obviously it was not. Will Chris Krebs or anybody that was involved in that premature analysis be held accountable?
Everybody that purposely misled the American people, abused their power and their authority, and decided not to continue doing their job will be held accountable. What does that accountability look like? I don't know. Is it criminal? We'll pursue criminal charges. If it is not criminal, we'll make sure you never work for the federal government again, and you never have the ability to have a clearance again. Yes. Go ahead. I will look this way next, I promise.
Some of your numbers, you have 278,000 non-citizens who went voter rolls. Any indication of how many people actually voted, or the 400,000 that are actually deceased? Any indication, total number of people that did vote, and what is your ballpark for how many of these people actually voted in terms of vote?
So those that we've identified, the 278,000 non-citizens and the 400,000 deceased, we are now going through that record. We're standing up a department in DHS. Heather Honey, who is doing a great job exposing all this and working with the team together. Joe Edlow with USCIS and other teams. We are going through these files one by one. And one, identifying the individual. Two, did they vote? And three, where did they vote at? That's a hard, it's easy with states that participate. So the 28,000 that we identified with the 23 states that are working with us, that system can be very easily exposed, all 28,000. The problem is an activist judges now have put a hold on it, and so we're pending the case. Once it's turned back on, we'll be able to move fast. The 400,000 or the 250,000 in the just four of the blue states. Meaning, what were the states? So I got it right. California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Nevada. Those are going to be a little bit tougher because we're going to file paperwork for FOIA, even us, to try to get that information from the states. But we will. I don't care how long it takes. We will go by this one by one, and everybody that did vote illegally, we will prosecute. We'll bring up for prosecution. Yes?
Thank you, sir. Very much for the Daily Wire. I have 2 questions for you.
By the way, it's very smart wearing a red dress because you catch everybody's eyes with my clothes. Same thing with the, what color shirt is that? Peach? Orange? I don't think that's orange. That's peach. That's definitely peach.
Yeah, great.
My first question for you is, given that left-wing lawmakers and media have already suggested that the president's entire speech last night is discredited, it seems likely that blue states will not participate in your efforts. So how do you plan to respond to that? And then my second question, on the traffic stops, did the president know about that decision before he made it, and what point did he learn?
Yeah, so let's talk about the major networks not willing to carry the President of the United States address to the nation on election security. How shameful is that? I think it was ABC,
Cowardly.
NBC, and I don't know if CBS, did CBS carry it? Anybody? CBS carried it. So ABC and NBC not carrying that, why? What are
Cowards.
they trying to cover up? Why wouldn't they want to inform the American people? Why are they calling themselves a news outlet if they're not actually trying to put the news out there? We wasn't giving spin on the election. The president wasn't trying to relitigate what happened in 2020, although he definitely could at this point. The president was giving facts, what we have exposed, what the Biden administration covered up, what the intelligence community held from the American people, Congress, and the executive branch, and we're putting it out there. And yet, 2 major networks didn't want to cover it? I think the question really should say why. Because they sure covered the other part of it when they were saying that it was the most secure election ever. What facts did they have? Because they didn't have facts. They were taking someone's word for it. President Trump gave facts. Today we're giving facts. When you start talking about the president and I are very close. I was texting with him this morning. He and I are there's no daylight between us and the enforcement. And in fact, we have ramped up our enforcement and our arresting illegals. Just to give you some numbers on this so everybody knows, and I want to get them correct, so I brought them with me. Last year total in 2025, we deported, now these are not including self-deportations. These are just ones that we had to go through, we had to arrest, we had to go through the system, and we had to deport, and they tried to stay inside the country, and they had no legal status to do it. 442,637 total deported last year in 25. To date, well, these are yesterday's numbers. We have 403,294 that we've done in 2026. Our arrests are up. We're hitting single-day records every single day. But what we've done is I've turned down the temperature of the stove to try to get it correct without boiling over. We're trying to perfect our ability to work with local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and get illegals and criminals off our streets. 70% of the arrests we do daily are felons or have pending felony charges. 70%. We should all be able to work together with that. Total removals is 3 million. Total removals, 3 million. 1.4 total aliens have been, since we've been put in place, have either volunteered to be deported, yet we paid for them, or we forced them. But as I said, total removals have said, hey, we're leaving the country and did it on themselves was over 3 million. Yes.
I want to ask about foreign agents.
I'm sorry, who did you say you were?
CBS News.
Well, thank you for covering it last night.
Absolutely. I want to ask about foreign interference in our elections, but just first, since you mentioned turning down the temperature, what assurances can you give Americans that ICE officers will face consequences if they violate DHS's?
An ICE shooting question. Nobody's covering this on the mainstream media right now.
And you commit now to making that determination public?
Let me clarify. When I say turn down the temperature, when I turn down the temperature with you guys, we're turning up the heat on the streets. We're out there working harder than we ever have because we've empowered our law enforcement to do their job. What I'm trying to do is remove us from the headlines every single day. but everybody will be held accountable. I don't pick and choose which laws I'm going to enforce. I enforce our nation's laws. That means I'll enforce it with our own agency, and I'll enforce it with the criminals on the streets. That's my assurance. Yes. Go ahead. And I saw you stand up. I'll get to you next. Go ahead. Yeah.
In previous instances where we've had ICE already requiring that registration, those have also happened in red states like Texas or in North Carolina, where we've had HSI or Oklahoma making requests. Could you talk about the scope of this investigation? It seems like it's more than actually just enforcing.
So when we start talking about enforcing, first of all, the states to work with us, and then the scope moving forward, I obviously can't force the states, but the states always look to us for reimbursement when it comes to helping with the elections. It's expensive to put on an election. I mean, you think about every precinct in every county and then statewide. We are not going to spend taxpayer dollars reimbursing a state that is refusing to secure their elections. And we're not saying do it alone. We're saying we're going to help you. We're going to give you the tools to need it. We're going to give you the training to need it. We're going to give you the funding to do it. We're going to expose the vulnerabilities, and all you have to do is use that information and the finances and the training we're going to give you to secure it. If you do it, we'll reimburse you. If you don't, we won't. Last question.
That's good. Cut that money off.
I'm getting the guy right there in the back.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Neil W. McCabe, Bill Martin's Voice. What are your former Republican Senate colleagues telling you? Are they in a mood to oust Majority Leader John Thune, who refuses to pass the Save America Act or can't figure out how to pass the Save America Act?
I haven't heard that at all from the Senate saying they're willing to vote John out. John is a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of most people in there. Now, there's a difference of opinion. I think the SAVE Act should be passed tomorrow. I think it should have already been passed. There's no excuse for it not being passed. However, he has a vote problem. There's a number. Leader Thune supports the SAVE Act. He voted for the SAVE Act when it came up during the vote-a-rama. Except everybody controls their own card. And even, I think the last time the vote came up, there was 49 that voted. Even if we did away with the filibuster, it still requires 51. So I know Leader Thune is working hard on that, but he's got a very, very difficult task ahead. Yes. Let me just get. I'm sorry. I told this guy with a paper I'd get to him, and then this is the last question. I have to go. I'm so sorry. Yes.
I'm just wondering if the officers involved in the Houston shooting as well as the May shooting, are they still on administrative?
ICE shooting question.
Why any investigation that is going through, I don't care which law enforcement, I don't care if you're local PD, if you're county, if you're state, or if you're federal. When there's a shooting involved, standard practice is that individual goes on administrative leave while the investigation is going through. And we do it the same way. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Markwayne Mullin, who was in the House Homeland Security Secretary, explaining that they'll be making some changes out there. And I think the big takeaway on that was all about that money. If you want that money from the federal government, you're going to come meet our standards. This is the same format and template that we see in other areas of American life. If you want federal transportation money for your highways, you got to make the speed limits in compliance with the federal standards. If you want any reimbursements for law enforcement, then you'll have to comply with the drinking age, right? You set federal standards, force the states to come into compliance with them. They pass their own rules, they make their own reforms, and then they'll get compensated. Now, they have to, of course, continue to pay taxes either way, so they don't have to make those reforms, but there's a lot of legal precedent that says that this modality is perfectly acceptable, and they're going to start fixing things now. Now, it is shameful and cowardly that our disgusting media would not ultimately cover this, and they're still not covering it. Fox News is talking about the wildfires right now. Great job, guys. We've got CNN playing a clip that just came up. MS Now is talking about Iran. BBC is talking about a cricket legend, somebody called Sir Garfield. not even talking about it because it's not that important to them. They're all beneficiaries of the current problematic system, right? The grift is made in the gray area. The more sanctified a system is and the more dialed in it is, the less opportunities there are to exploit it. And so we've got some other follow-up on the disgusting media. Here is what Brian Stelter had to say, and then we've got a bunch more coming up. So we're going to talk about the massaging of the PDB. We're going to talk about Nikki Flores, one of the people who said that she was running a shadow government. I got a whole segment queued up on her. We'll talk about the FBI investigating in Fulton County. And we'll talk about Ruben Gallego, all coming up. But a little bit more on this because we've got one admission here from Brian Stelter, Mr. Potato Head. He said the following on this. He said, we are not covering it, and it was an executive decision, right? These people don't want to talk about it. I don't know if they're bought off by these foreign powers or what, but there needs to be a lot of scrutiny on this. If the money that the CIA is mentioning is coming in to facilitate economic attacks and to create these influence campaigns, we need to validate what that money is doing and where it's coming from. If it's foreign money, we got to do something about it. And so maybe that's why these news companies are not covering it. Maybe their licenses should be revoked immediately. So here's Mr. Potato Head Brian Stelter explaining it was executives who cut it off from the media.
He did the same thing as this network, CNN, last night. The newsrooms monitored the speech, evaluated what was actually newsworthy, looked at the documents Trump was declassifying, and then reported on what happened. NBC and ABC both went on the air with special reports to explain that the speech had happened and to summarize what Trump had said, but most importantly, to contextualize it and fact check it, just as CNN did. Now, Trump was ominously claiming that the networks were part of a plot, but the only real plot here, the only intention is to remain reality-based and truth-based. Trump's election lies led to violence after the 2020 election. So
so did the CIA's involvement and Homeland Security's involvement in all of that. So let me just play this out.
This is a subject that really does warrant extra care and attention by journalists. And frankly, some network executives felt that it would be dangerous to just air Trump's speech live, in full, unedited, without knowing what he was going to say ahead of time.
Yeah, so the executive said this is too dangerous. This is insane. This is the president of the United States giving a national address, and these news companies who call themselves news companies did not run it. They should literally lose their licenses. They're not a news entity at all. Why do we give them all of this very valuable airspace if they're not going to cover the president? And I would say the same damn thing about Biden or anything else. A national address about national security, about election integrity needs to be covered if you're going to get a public license and be able to broadcast across the country. It's news. It's coming from the president's mouth. That's the people's president, whether you like it or not. And so they'll always revert back to January 6th. We know that whole thing was a total scam. And so that is what Brian Stelter had to say. Some fun clips coming out from our friend Maze Moore over on X. He said, remember back in 2018 where the Democrats would say that they actually had intel that there were hacks to our elections. Here's a little bit of Obama.
To the former head of the KGB. Actively blocking legislation that would defend our elections from Russian attack. What happened?
Weird. I thought our elections were perfect. Yeah, so I guess they weren't. So here's one more little montage here, but they had Hillary Clinton. This goes on for 20 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing, obviously, but you can see it's everybody. It's Kamala Harris. It's Clinton. It's that one dude who worked for Clinton. It's Ron Wyden. Ron Wyden again in 2019. Another one, 2019. All of them talking about election problems.
Vulnerable to being hacked. I sit on the Senate Intelligence Committee and Senate Homeland Security Committee. And we receive all kinds of information about the vulnerabilities to our national security. We are vulnerable in terms of foreign interference with our elections.
Wow.
It's my understanding that some of the election system vendors have required states to sign agreements that prevent or inhibit independent security testing. There's a saying that I'm sure many of you have heard, which is the difference between being hacked and not being hacked is knowing you've been hacked.
And they are still looking for ways to steal information about voter registration, for example. There are some tax experts in Silicon Valley with whom I have met who say that, maybe what they'll do this next time is to really disrupt the actual election.
Wow. Okay, so you get the point. We can't have our brain cells continue to rot here, but it's all of them. It's 20 minutes. This came over from Kanakawa the Great. They have entire presentations where they say, how hard would it be to invisibly change a national election outcome by tampering with voting machines? This guy's on a stage somewhere. He said, easier than we thought. All you got to do, step one, use pre-election polls to identify close states, choose the weakest targets, target jurisdictions for service providers, and compromise the computers. Step three, injected memory cards exploit vulnerable voting machines to run malware, swap a small percentage, 5% of the votes. Most states will throw away the ballots without even rigorously checking them. And by the time you sue, judges dismiss it and your cover-up is complete. Then he says a little bit more here. It's decentralized, so you just got to hit a couple of states. Here's another guy in Dominion explaining the same thing. Okay, so easier than they thought. They all were crying about this. Now they all just say they are perfectly happy with the system because they've got their fingers in it and they don't want to take them out and actually secure anything. So we've got more. The SAVE Act now is on the White House website. And so you can check that out, whitehouse.gov. They say, this is what we want. We need the SAVE Act now. They write, American citizens and only citizens should be deciding our elections. This is a common sense bipartisan bill that would simply require these things. 1, a valid ID before registering to vote in a federal election. 2, proof of citizenship. And 3, no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. And those are all very common sense. Okay, the mail-in balloting, I know a lot of people are in favor of that, but if you're disabled, you're good. You're ill, okay, fine, you can get one. You're military, obviously. You're out of the country, okay. Otherwise, get your butt down to the polls and vote. The president is calling on Republicans and Democrats to pass this, want a requirement for the SAVE Act to pass and voter ID to be implemented. And right now, America is like a dumpster compared to some other countries. Saying India and Brazil tie voter ID to biometric databases, while the United States just relies on self-attestation. I am a citizen. Trust me. All you got to do is check a box. They don't even check. Germany and Canada require paper ballots when tabulating the votes. The U.S. lacks a basic chain of custody protection. Denmark and Sweden limit mail-in voting to those who are literally unable to vote in person. And late arrivals do not count. While American elections now feature mass voting by mail, even after Election Day, because our stupid Supreme Court said that that was lawful. I think that was another Amy Coney Barrett decision. You can count ballots that come in late, as long as it was like postmarked or put in the mail, even though there really is a big problem with actually postmarking things. And we ask about the common carrier provision and whether other people can drop them off after the fact. But it's a disaster. So urge your senator to call and pass the SAVE Act. Tell them to get this done. And it should really be bipartisan. It was bipartisan until Trump came in and started to say, we need to figure this out. Now, all of these people, Ron Wyden, Mark Warner, the other lady from Minnesota, Zoe Lofgren, who was on the J6 committee, Kamala, all of them were complaining about this, but now they're fine with it because they know that they can rig it on the margins to support their people, and they don't want to give Trump a win on this at all. Now, here was one other little thing, because this was back in 2019, and this was a report from NBC News, shared for us, courtesy of Big Fish 3000 on X. He's explaining that they talked about this back then in 2019. Put together a whole report on it. Now they don't even want to play the president's speech when he's making a national address to the nation. It's insane. Here's what this report had to say.
That you could certainly do within 6 minutes behind a curtain, much less if you had extra time because any of these were connected to the web, as we discovered a couple of days before, so many of them are. So at the end of the event, Voting Village issues a report, and so we'll be expecting one from them. And they're very transparent about it. I mean, the spirit of this event was transparency, trying to get these vulnerabilities out into the world so that I guess the idea is that the companies will be forced to correct them in some ways. The front of each machine was a little post-it that showed off what had been found out by the various hackers. So at one point, the admin password was just sitting there on there because it turns out that the same admin password applies to multiple machines across the room, and those machines were created in the 2000s, which means that they were in fact created so you can't change that admin password. They're just locked for all time in that way. There does not seem to be any political momentum on some of the bills that are under consideration right now around trying to keep these machines off the internet or trying to establish some sort of certifiable ballot, paper ballot system or any of the other things that have been proposed. And so the combination of seeing the incredible vulnerabilities that we saw on display in real time at this event and the lack of institutional action around the security of the vote, all of that made for an extremely alarming weekend.
Extremely alarming weekend from NBC News. Weird. And then we saw Trump come out last night and say the exact same thing, but since he's saying it, they don't want to make a report about it. And he actually had classified documents. These were just a bunch of hacker bros in there who were fiddling with the machines and were able, apparently, to exploit them. And we've seen this before because even Secretary, so-called Jenna Griswold, put the password to her systems on the internet and didn't face any repercussions for that, deployed essentially an election SWAT team to go out days before the election, open up the machines, change the software, change what was actually validated, went through logic and accuracy testing. She goes in, manipulates everything, seals everything back up, and then escapes liability for that while she still screams and shouts about Tina Peters not being in prison for long enough. So we're happy to see this. I think that Markwayne, Mullin, and the strategy, which is to say you must comply if you want that federal cash, will be helpful and hopefully incentivize certain states to come and actually support these efforts. But as we know, many of them, I think they'd rather just stick with their election fraud systems. They'd rather not really validate exactly what they're doing and allow the grift to continue in the gray area. So what if they lose a little bit of money? They'll have perpetual power. And if this continues, if we have an election problem, and every year it kind of gets a little bit more problematic because more data leaks, the Chinese gobble up more, we've got more leftists, more illegals who are registering, we've got a bunch of kind of institutional structural problems, it's going to compound and get worse every year unless we fix it. So hopefully this is the start of something useful. We're happy to see Markwayne is on it at the direction of the president. And so we'll see what else happens very soon. Now let's talk about the lady called Nikki Flores, who is this woman right here, who has now been outed as a deep stater, 100%. Nikki Flores, the deep stater who said that she was now acting as a shadow government, has been exposed. President Trump released internal documents that are now declassified, showing her text messages with other people where she admitted it outright. And we're learning more about this woman and exactly how deep the rabbit hole goes. But if you missed the actual exchange, in this segment, we were talking about these messages back and forth between a person called Nikki L. Flores, the woman that you just saw right here. She was also asked a bunch of questions by Matt Gaetz, which we'll review, but there were exchanges going on, and this all centered around a report. The report was very damning for the current deep state. They did not want Trump to get their hands on any of this material. And at the bottom of this one declassified document, you can see we've got a bunch of details here, but this was about a recall of an intelligence product that went out and was going to make its way up into the president's hands and to other people who can ultimately make a decision about this. And they stole it back. They recalled it, and they prevented any future products that are in this vein from actually going up through the proper chains. They bypassed everything to make it go through FBI HQ so that they could have a veto power. And so we've got 3 statutes that we've got queued up here that we think are relevant criminal charges for this behavior. Of course, we'll see what you say about it. But here was just the subject. There was a substantive recall of this report. Chinese government production and export of fraudulent U.S. votes for presidential candidate Joe Biden. This was a product that came out from a Chinese source who had a sub-source, and there were people inside the FBI who thought this was very important, and we need to bring this to attention and address it. So once this went out, then they went through a meltdown, and they wanted to recall this one product. And we'll take a look at more of the mechanics here. But the short of it is that this woman was texting about this. Someone sends her a message. Good morning, sunshine. Do you have any reads ahead for your FITIF update? I'll have to leave early to go to Nakasone Prep. Should be fun. She says, yeah, let me shoot you an email. Thanks. Unrelated, do you have a serial number for that report that you mentioned to me last week? The damning one that talks about the Chinese ballots. Saying, she responds, it's recalled. Okay, I pulled it back out. We put this in the binder and then I pulled it back out because it was going to be damaging. Okay, talking to the PDP briefer, that's why I'm asking. She gives him the number. She's also asking if there was a revision on the Russian one. Yeah, there should have been one, a revision. I haven't seen it. My team's not in yet. Okay, I looked in our system, but I didn't see it. But the system I use to look at your reports is not friendly, so it might be there somewhere. Yeah, it doesn't look like they pushed the revision out yet. She says, for F's sake here, potty mouth. Okay, the director has the original in his book this morning. She says, great. Hashtag fun never ends. Seriously, she says, we're pushing out a note today to all FOs, field offices, that all election-related reports must come through us, FITIF and the HQ. So if there's anything else that says the Chinese helped Joe Biden win, and brought in fraudulent IDs, which we validated well before we got these documents. There are literal reports on Border Patrol's website. Right now, you can go look them up. Thousands, tens of thousands of fake IDs coming in at the port of entry in Detroit, Chicago, O'Hare airports, and more. They caught them. They didn't really know what these were for. The reports say that the IDs actually worked since the Chinese stole 220 million personal records, so they could create actual names or go and just validate who these people are and make a duplicate ID. Maybe go take those IDs, go register in another state, vote in that other state. The person who is the subject has their identity stolen, would have no idea, identify low propensity voters and more. Tens of thousands of ballots came in. They just chalked it up. They didn't know at Border Patrol. Like, I don't know, maybe these are college kids who just want to go drink at bars somewhere. So then he says, that's good. Okay, we don't want anything bypassing Christopher Wray. We don't want anything deviating past what we want to veto before it gets to the president. This is the damning text. He says, that's good. Like, perfect. Yeah, because this is crazy. She says, I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point. Wow. I'm running a shadow government across the FBI. And there are various statutes talking about concealing material facts. And if you're doing that, that's a crime. You've got an obligation as a government employee. You've sworn an oath, I would presume, to not do this. And she's violating multiple statutes. We'll come back to those and apply. But here is what this dude says in response. Don't know who this is, but he's a material witness to these crimes, saying, you do what you have to do. Smiley face, okay? You do what you have to do. Run your shadow government and good luck. Hang in there. I told someone you just need to get through December. There are a couple of weeks in November and December where it is a ghost town. She says, no joke, I want to take like a 2-week vacay in January. My FBI coup is a lot of pressure on me. I'd like to go have some mojitos down in China. My goal is to take a month off. This guy, I am scheduled to finish here June 21. Then I plan to take July off. That's my goal. She says, don't leave. And I wonder what's going on here, because who says that to a coworker? Good morning, sunshine. Like, I know you could say that, like, good morning, sunshine, like in general. But if you say that to a person, is that kind of like a lovey-dovey phrase, like, hello, sunshine, good morning, bright eyes, something like that? I wonder if these two are indicting each other. So no joke, I want to take a week off. Don't leave, frowny. Since Alan can't sit in on the brief, can you let me know how the convo goes about my reports that I'm now retracting and recalling? Yes, we'll let you know. Grazie. If your bosses have a 9:30, suspect the meeting will be short. We are only up to blank. It's almost 8:30. Good Lord. Yeah, I had a few things, but I'll just pass. This always happens when I actually have a few things that might be useful to the group. And so the whole report was recalled. Now you can see one person, one agent from FIDIF identified an open source report about Border Patrol seizing fraudulent driver's licenses. We've talked about it many times. Tens of thousands of IDs came in. They emailed the Albany report to the China unit. Then the China unit informed this person about the seizures, discussed this with someone else, recommending for others and future leads to investigate it. Then they issued a second lead about this story, about the IDs coming in that are actually being exploited by the Chinese. And then they obtained information via others, which identified the China-based sender names and addresses for the shipment packages and noted that Border Patrol does not maintain a list of names for fraudulent driver's licenses, as they say the majority of those are just for underage kids who want to drink. Then they sent another email containing information, and more emails went out, and then somebody authors a report covering the lead, and they identify who it is. And then of course, that was just the initiation of how it was created. And then they ultimately withdrew it. Okay, this is the Albany report is what this document is called. Goes through a bunch of subsources. Finally, someone sends it out and then they recall the emails. People are responding to concerns. Hey, and then finally they just block it. Nope, this report is not authoritative. You need to go back and do some additional work. Meanwhile, the lady who's helping to facilitate a lot of this is saying, I'm running literally a shadow government. This guy, as we saw, he said, you know, the fact that you want to recall this, like Christopher Wray went out and testified that the Chinese are not interfering. This would actually directly contradict Christopher Wray. And so Christopher Wray and the FBI were essentially just the same as Bill Barr was. Okay, they didn't look, or they did look and they knew what was happening and they didn't follow up on it, or worse, they actively concealed material facts from the literal president of the United States. We know they hate him, but that's not their right to retract information from him. So all of this is documented here in the emails and a back and forth. Of course, we covered that at length. Here's how it was recalled. You see, ultimately, boom, more recalls, more emails. And then someone else says, Flores right here. One person states to Flores via email that should never have gone out and then recommends a recall. Then Flores is asked via email that he asked Albany to recall. Then Flores replies that she concurs and the shadow government jumps in. And then, of course, it is recalled. Says here, they'll require once again, boom, she says everything's going to come through our offices so that we can veto everybody. Okay, it's all there on exactly how it went down. Then, boom, it is recalled. The IIR is recalled by the CRO. And so they knew exactly what was going on even before the election occurred and didn't tell anybody about it. So that woman's name is Nikki Flores. And we've got more information about her. And a lot of this came over from our friends at Marco Polo and Oversight, who've already been all over this lady. Here's a background on her. So Nikki Lee Flores, courtesy of Marco Polo, 501c3 on X and at .org and Substack. They say Flores, she has been involved as a Democrat hatchet person for a long time. Flores, along with her colleague Benavides, provided false information to senators about the Bidens. Weird. And their foreign business dealings, specifically Flores, who met multiple times with Joe Biden's then chief counsel in the West Wing called Dana Remus. So they get Joe Biden installed, and then she goes out there and is working with him. They were embroiled in Joe's classified documents. She briefed the U.S. Senate committee about how legitimate inquiries into the Bidens, if you look into the Bidens, that's Russian disinformation. Just like the other intelligence idiots, the 51 of those people who signed on that letter said. This is all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation operations. And Miranda Devine was on this back in 2025 in April. She said Nikki Flores was one of the agents who gave Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley a bogus defensive briefing in August 2020 undermining their Hunter Biden investigation. Okay, so in 2020, August, she's covering up for Chinese influence and then blaming the Russians as she's covering up for Joe Biden. Said it was all a Russian disinformation operation. And then somebody leaked about that. So she is protecting Joe while disarming Trump as to the truth of what's happening in the elections. It's bad. So we know more about her, and what we've seen here, the president actually called this out. And so if you missed the full speech last night, let's listen to what he had to say about this, and then we'll learn even more about her and take a look at the criminal charges.
The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who
Nikki, Flores nailed. And the president was referring to this actual Albany report. And this is what the underlying report that was ultimately recalled said. The source obtained information from a subsource who claimed they got the information from Chinese government officials. Okay, so the chain comes directly from the top of China. In late 2020, the Chinese government had produced a large amount of fraudulent U.S. driver's licenses. As we saw in other reports, they literally work like the barcode on the back scanned and validated against the Michigan system, secretly exported to the U.S. The driver's licenses would allow tens of thousands of Chinese students and immigrants sympathetic to the CCP to vote for Joe Biden, despite not being eligible to vote. China had also concluded that private U.S. data from TikTok and other IDs and addresses would allow the Chinese governments to make actual real people and create fraudulent licenses. These driver's licenses were to include true ID numbers, true addresses of citizens, making them even difficult to detect. China planned to use the fraudulent driver's licenses to account for tens of thousands of mail-in votes, and you only needed about 50,000 votes to flip the election, or to at least draw it to a draw. So they say addresses are not in TikTok. We know you can just buy something on TikTok. It can scan your whole basic phone. Many detailed intelligence reports said don't even install the app because it can access everything on your device. So if you have your address anywhere, it's scraping it. And if you take a picture of your driver's license or something like that, buy a product in the TikTok store, your address is now in the hands of the CCP. Now, Trump also commented on this message. And once again, people are fighting over what Trump can see. They do not want to give him information that validates his concerns about a rigged election. This one coming in after the election, saying, I think I mentioned to you before that there is some pending blank that makes it clear that China has been caught conducting election influence. At least that's how it was described to us. But as you scroll up, you'll see that the NSA, quote, deliberately massaged our one pending brief to avoid any direct links to this election. He says, what are they doing over there? And here's what that original email looked like. Down here, we don't know the names of these people. Don't know why they have not been released to us. Maybe because they're still working inside the government. The other lady, Nikki Flores, is not in the government. All blank has heard, received nothing. This person says, we have deliberately massaged our one pending brief to the president to avoid any direct links to the election. Okay, put a pin in that because we're going to look at some criminal charges. The massive report that we have been waiting on has been chopped up into 13 reports that likely will not get out until late next week. Many of them all will be cross-posted into blank or downgraded to blank so that they can be more readily incorporated into the 45-day piece if needed. Okay, we're going to splice it up. We're not going to allow the full context to come out in one time, and we'll just, give you like a report a day until late next week. And massaged it in order to get the right outcome. So then they say, that's ridiculous. They say, I haven't heard from China and the China group. My impression is they've been waiting for the new brief to update the story. Now, I don't want to preempt any of this, but with the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment in mind, I really think we need to comment on how the new information relates to the election story or not. They'll expect that from us. And we think this new info is highly relevant, though I realize we're in the minority here. Now, I understand you're trying to navigate various perspectives, so happy to discuss this. And then they really respond with shock, saying, deliberately massaging our one brief? What are you talking about? While this is important for your report, I'm sure, it also has the potential to be a near-term issue. This is a really good example, but far from the only one, of what I've been raising since the summer, that the IC is deliberately avoiding mentioning a connection to elections for non-substantive reasons, okay? There's no reason. Like, if the source comes back and you're like, oh, the source is bad, the subsource is a hack, and maybe he's like a Hillary Clinton campaign propagandist, Michael Steele, they used his report and put that in a classified annex in an ICA. That should have never been in there. Okay, so a bad source is not really a good reason, according to their own standards, to dump anything. But here, they didn't have a substantive reason. He was a legitimate subsource who was getting info from the Chinese government. Obviously, since the blank isn't released yet, there isn't a PDB, so maybe it won't end up being an issue, but this is a highly irregular way of doing things, especially as someone who's trying to raise tradecraft and substantive objections to the mainline analysis and isn't getting our work incorporated or even mentioned, okay? It's concealment of material facts. We're going to come back on the charges here in a moment. But now they want to know more. Who would be the decision maker here to reconnect the thread on election security to what is about to go out? Like, this is important. You're releasing information and you're not including a key thread on what needs to be discussed. It's shameful. Now, remember that not soon after this, back in 2024, March 26, these emails were coming out around right after the election, 2020. Then they fast forward a little bit, and then the Biden people start to say, oh yeah, the Chinese are hacking us. Weird. Nectar Gone at CNN, who's now saying Trump is filled with lies, says China hits back at the US and the UK because the US and the UK sanctioned them on espionage hacks as coordinated pressure on Beijing goes. All right, so you get the story. We're not paying for CNN, but they were talking about that some time ago when it is convenient for them, and they were probably trying to set up a, Chinese stole the election from Kamala narrative. But here's more from the Oversight Project, more details on Nikki Flores. She is a weaponized FBI agent. She's no longer there anymore. My understanding is she now works for Microsoft, perfect, who organized a shadow government. Now, she was a big player in their criminal referral against Christopher Wray. Oversight Project's amazing. We just did a great interview with Mike Howell, the president over there. They made a criminal referral against Christopher Wray for lying about foreign election interference. And as was just documented in those emails, Christopher Wray was telling Congress that there wasn't a problem with foreign interference. And they said, yeah, there was. And that they were actually reverting the language of what was going out based on the fact that it contradicted Christopher Wray's testimony. And there were a lot of concerns about that, as we talked about in one of these emails right here. Right? You're contradicting Christopher Wray's testimony. There's evidence that you guys are discussing that his testimony to Congress is filled with lies. And so you don't want us to present any evidence that might undermine what he lied about. So they covered it up. Oversight is saying that's a crime and it deserves a criminal referral. Saying Flores served as the deputy assistant director of the counter intel branch from 18 to 22. And then guess what? After she did her dirty work, she got a promotion. And then in May 2022, they made her the intelligence analyst in charge of the intelligence division of the Washington field office. Nice promotion. Christopher Wray, who she covered up for, then promoted her. Incredible. And guess what? She is the first person to hold this position at a field office who's an intelligence analyst, right? It's just like in Georgia, where if you do the covering up, like Vic Reynolds did, or like the judge Scott McAfee did, you give them a promotion, you make them a permanent judge forever. Wow, what a great way to do it. As long as they do what you need them to do, you'll take care of them on the way up. Now, she's no longer there, she's at the FBI, but at Microsoft, rather. By her own LinkedIn now, she, quote, routinely, if not daily, briefed Director Wray on 2020 election threats. She knew this was coming through and then recalled it. That chain of command is why investigators say that she's the key witness against Wray. Here is their project's original criminal referral against Christopher Wray. They published that one back in June 2025, so just over a year ago, saying these people buried evidence of Chinese interference and then lied to Congress. 18 U.S. Code, Section 1001, concealing material facts. Now, Operation Round River, okay, under Flores's FIDIF, task force, Russia collusion hoaxer called Brian Otten opened up an investigation called Round River in August 2020, months before the election. Round River was used to relabel over 40 FBI confidential human sources who were all reporting on the Biden family. Okay, the Biden family came under a lot of scrutiny because of their crackhead son and the fact that Joe Biden was using their son to get out there and actually make money for his family and peddle influence. Joe Biden had arm's length distance away, saying it's not me doing it. And all of the stories started to come out. So then our own CIA helped facilitate John Brennan and 50 other idiots to write a fake letter colluding with the Joe Biden campaign, rigging the election accordingly from our internal analysts. And here inside, these people in FIDIF and under Nikki Flores, the same woman who is now running a shadow government, relabeled these people. The operation ignored 150 suspicious activity reports, ignored $10 million in foreign payments, over 20 shell companies, and they were, in other words, catching it on both ends. Out external information that was bad for Biden and good for Trump, they covered it up. Internal information that they had that was bad for Joe Biden, they relabeled, and so nobody could do anything with it. Round River gave the FBI cover to never investigate the money, even as the same division under Flores aggressively pursued most other preposterous leads against Trump. Round River was also used to go after journalists and others who publicly acknowledged the Biden corruption. Remember this one back in August 6, 2020. Flores, the shadow government person, personally briefed Senators Grassley and Johnson days after Schumer, Warner, Pelosi, and Schiff sent the FBI a letter tying the senators to Russian disinformation. So now it's not the Russians who are doing anything bad. It's if you think that we're doing something bad, you're buying into Russian disinformation and you don't want to be a communist, do you? And love Putin. So the leftists all, again, just blame foreign governments for their own internal malfeasance. Grassley called the briefing unnecessary and completely irrelevant. He asked Flores whether they would, quote, leak that would shed false light on our investigation. They did. It leaked to the press within days and was used to falsely smear his investigation as Russian-linked. Same thing that John Brennan did, the CIA. It was all one big operation across multiple domains in the IC. Now, under oath in 2023, Flores admitted that the briefing wasn't even FBI intelligence. She said, I didn't do anything. She said the director of national intelligence did. They took the lead in drafting the script. She delivered the script. She put on the FBI badge and then just regurgitated something from the DNI. The FBI had no intelligence that Grassley's report was tainted. And so the sabotage brief report was also released back in 2023. This is how deep it goes. Now, the pretext, remember that in February 2020, an unusual public appearance for an FBI assistant section chief, a rep of the FIDF, the Financial Investigations Task Force, claimed that foreign malign actors sought to create a mistrust of government. Why should we trust them? And let's not forget, okay, this goes all the way back to 2016 and before that, where we had Peter Strzok, the FBI agent who was indicting another FBI agent called Lisa Page. These two were boinking each other and texting each other. We will stop him. We're going to stop the president from actually doing anything. He's not going to win. He's not going to win, will he, baby? No, we will stop him. I love you. In other words, they sought to prop up the woke media and to say, if you say that there are internal problems, it's like pre-butting any criticism of the IC by just saying you're Russian disinformation. When appropriate, the FBI provides actionable intelligence. Of course, the establishment media ran with this, and anything that we said about the Bidens was all just led to an accusation that you're Putin's stooge. A lot of that is still going on, by the way, right now. You have any criticism about anything, it's like you're a foreign bought person. Now, the Chinese suppression also came out. In September 25, then, the FBI Albany source, we just read through those documents, detailed the CCP scheme using stolen TikTok data to create fake driver's licenses. Analysts rated the sources as very, very confident, and the handling of this subsource was called textbook. Minutes after Albany released it, HQ recalled it. And who did that recall? Nikki Flores. The reason, according to Senator Grassley, is that the reporting will contradict Wray's testimony. So the testimony was Wray going in there one day earlier on September 24th saying, no, I have not seen any coordinated national voter fraud. And Flores briefed him regularly. So her division buried the one report that said otherwise. Now, the Albany analyst internal note flagged it directly, saying recalling the report implied one of the reasons we aren't putting this out is for a political reason. 100%. Flores' office then made all election intel route through HQ so that they could exact a veto power over actual intelligence. So the Oversights Project criminal referral specifically named Flores explicitly as a bridge of the evidence. She knew of the Chinese threat, and Wray had to have also known about this because she gave daily briefings to him. So then Flores publicly championed the Protective Voices program that ran FBI back channels into Facebook and Twitter and Google to flag foreign disinformation. It's not foreign disinformation. It's Democrat collusion with intelligence agencies. It's political internal enemies within who are rigging the system. The FIDF deplatformed countless social media accounts that had zero nexus to any foreign influence because they didn't like their content. And we were the victim of this. We had multiple videos struck down for talking about January 6th, for talking about the rigged election, for talking about COVID, and had to go through it. And we got off easy, man. We didn't go to prison. So per congressional records and the Twitter files, most content flagged by those wasn't foreign at all. It was conservative speech, including the already authenticated Hunter laptop story. And I mean, they demonetized us for 9 months on YouTube to try to destroy this show, to prevent it from ever blossoming into this beautiful thing that it's become. So the same FIDF under Flores' authority opened inquiries into FBI sources and employees who tried to report the Biden family's conduct. A foreign influence section was turned inward on its own process. Then we had Arctic frost, right? Goes on and on. Another counter intel case. FBI opened up Arctic Frost to investigate Trump after J6 and for the election fraud. And then Jack Smith came and inherited it. Didn't do his own investigation, just copied the FBI files and just moved it over to his desk and said, it's an independent prosecution now reviewing this. They built on the same tools. They used the same cover-up stuff. And so, of course, FIDF was disbanded Feb 25 after Trump came in. Wray's criminal referral is with the DOJ. Grassley's records request for her comms are pending. And now Flores is now the director of insider risk at Microsoft, right? And I think that's where Lisa Monaco is too, isn't she? Lisa Monaco, who was at the DOJ. Did she go over there? Yeah, she did. She's the president of Microsoft Global Affairs. It's like a landing spot for all of the most corrupt intelligence criminals. All go right over to Microsoft. And so here's a little bit more from our friends at Marco Polo. Shout out to Oversight Project for that. We're going to repost that thread at the top of our timeline so you can give those guys a follow. Really, really great report. Boom. There it is. And then more from Marco Polo. So they had here this woman also showing up in visitor logs at the White House. Isn't that curious? So is that her name? Last name Arnold. Maybe she got married or the name changed, but Marco Polo is usually solid. So that might be her. Nikki F. Arnold. Maybe that's a maiden name or something. So may or may not have been going back and forth to the White House. Here's another document that we read. She just got named an intelligence analyst after she did Christopher Wray's cover-up work for him. Then he promoted her, just like judges in Georgia and elsewhere all got their jobs is by covering up the election fraud. We also saw some other documents here. August 25, 2022. This was a letter sent out for Chuck Grassley from him to her and to her people saying, we got a lot of questions about this. And you provided a briefing to us and you stated things about Christopher Wray. And it seems like you only did so to falsely attack our Biden investigation, calling it Russian disinformation. She's like a foreign intelligence asset or a Democrat intelligence asset, literally. And she's not actually providing the truth or doing her job. She says, you guys, by investigating us and our cover-up of the Biden family, we are saying you're foreign misinformation. You're Russian. You're the ones acting on behalf of a foreign agency. But you're literally the ones who are backstabbing your country in these efforts. And let's see, they also got a screen grab of her Facebook. And so looks like her, Nikki Flores Arnold. So she may have gotten married in the aftermath of this is kind of what it's looking like, clipped over from Marco Polo, and may or may not have been going out to the White House. So very troubling indeed. And shout out again to Marco Polo for keeping their eye on this one. We'll repost this too at the top of our timeline. But she has a full bio. She testified in front of Congress. And here is an exchange between her and Matt Gaetz digging into this, who is another now FBI official. And Matt Gaetz asks her specifically about the Peter Strzok, Lisa Page affair, these two FBI agents who were boinking each other and then colluding with each other to prevent Trump's election victory. We saw that in their text messages. Peter Strzok texts Lisa, we'll stop him. I love you. We're going to fight for America. Totally going to use, the T word, but it's not good at all. So here's more from Nikki Flores testifying with Matt Gaetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish this truly were a sincere hearing on election security. If it were, we might be marking up some of the bipartisan legislation that members of the committee have worked on, including House Resolution 3529 by Congresswoman Murphy, Mr. Deutsch, Ms. McChrystal-Powell, myself, to have greater connectivity prior to any intrusion. Or we might be marking up the legislation by Mr. Ratcliffe, Mr. Himes, joined by Mr. Collins and Mr. Khanna, 3238, that would create greater consequence for those who engage in election interference. But that's not what this is about. This is about smearing the President of the United States and validating the corrupt people who have been involved in delegitimizing his historic election. And we know that because just moments ago, the chairman said that Peter Strzok was acting in the highest traditions of government service. Now, Ms. Flores, I believe you currently hold a job that Mr. Strzok once held. Is engaging in an extramarital affair in the FBI with a coworker acting in the highest traditions of government service?
I'm not going to comment on that, sir.
Are there any regulations of the FBI against it that you're aware of?
I'm not going to comment on that, sir.
Well, you hold Mr. Strzok's job. Are you saying that you don't know whether or not it's against FBI policy to have an extramarital affair with a coworker?
Sir, I hold a slightly different job than Mr. Strzok held. I'm the DAD over the intelligence branch. He was over our operational branch, not that we are held to a different standard. I'm just not going to comment on whether or not Peter Strzok's behavior was out of content.
Is it in the highest traditions of government service at the FBI to engage in affairs with coworkers? You should know that if you work there.
Sir, I'm not going to comment on that.
Wow. Well, maybe I'll ask you another one. The Inspector General said in his report, we do not have confidence that Strzok's decision to prioritize the Russia investigation over following up on the mid-year related investigation. So if the Inspector General didn't have confidence in the way that someone prioritized something, would that be acting in the highest traditions of government service?
Sir, I'm not going to comment on that.
The Inspector General further said the OIG found it's not only indicative of a biased state of mind, but even more suspiciously implies a willingness to take action to impact the presidential candidate's electoral process. This is antithetical to the core values of the FBI and the Department of Justice. If anyone is engaging in behavior that is antithetical to the core values of the FBI and Department of Justice, is that person acting in the highest traditions of government service?
Sir, we have an entire inspection division. We have the OIG. There are several measures in place that take into account those questions. I'm not going to answer those questions from the position I am in.
It's just really striking that someone in the senior leadership at the FBI, like an unwillingness to be critical of conduct that was so detrimental to our country. And as people all over America are looking at the corruption that negatively impacted our president and the institution of the presidency, it doesn't really inspire confidence that current officials from the FBI say, hey, you know what? It's a bad idea to be having affairs with your colleagues and to be undermining the trust that people have and to be prioritizing investigations over politics. But nonetheless, here we sit. And in fact, here we do sit. You know, it was more than a month ago, Mr. Chairman, that you announced an impeachment inquiry in this committee. And I believed you that our committee would be engaged in that process. But as we sit here today, 3 other committees are in the basement of the Capitol, conducting secret interviews, engaging in selective leaks. You got Chairman Schiff then coming out and having his theatrical re-performances of transcripts that didn't really occur. And you've got lies about contacts with whistleblowers. Now, regardless of how people feel about the president or this impeachment, one would at least think that if the chairman of the Judiciary Committee announces the launch of an impeachment investigation, that members of the Judiciary Committee might be willing to or able to participate in that investigation. But when I've gone to participate, when Mr. Biggs has gone to participate, when others have gone, we've been locked out. So it is my sincere hope, and I asked this the last time we gathered, that you would take up the cause not just of someone's partisan ambition to impeach the president, but that you would take up the cause of our committee and advocate for our ability to participate, because one can only suspect that the reason that the House Judiciary Committee has been dealt out of the hand on impeachment is because Speaker Pelosi didn't like the outcomes that were going on in this committee when the current chairman was running it. I mean, it wasn't a surprise to the country when you brought in Mr. Lewandowski. House Democrats looked like a dog that caught a car and didn't know what to do with it. When House Democrats brought in Robert Mueller, there were promises that this was going to sway the public. This was going to create a flood of support for impeachment. And that was obviously something that didn't hold to bear. And so please stand up for our committee and let's stop with this busy work. If we want to mark up bills, let's mark up real bills. I yield back.
Matt Gaetz, she, of course, doesn't want to answer any ethical questions because she has no ethics, in our opinion, at all. But we've got the criminal charges, which I think might be appropriate for her, given the fact that she was running a shadow government and concealing information of a material nature from the sitting president of these United States, starting with the obvious one about false statements or concealment of material fact. Right here, 18 U.S. Code, Section 1001. Whoever in any matter within the jurisdiction of the executive, she was actually working for the FBI, so that counts. If she's knowingly and willfully falsifying or concealing or covers up by trick or scheme or device a material fact. Okay, she's going to make an argument. We didn't think it was material. We had a bunch of justifications as to why this report should not be included. But the truth is, she was admitting it. She was running a shadow government. She was keeping this stuff off the books, and people were encouraging her to do it. You need to do what you have to do. Smiley face. Concealing the truth about a legitimate report and then colluding with other people in the IC to massage these things so that the president could not see election-related documents. Now, that I think is sufficient. Imprisonment not more than 5 years, which is a good start. Now, it doesn't apply in a judicial proceeding with respect to the legislative branch. I think you could probably also hit her for, I haven't watched all of her testimony, but I bet there's a lie or two in there if I had to guess. But otherwise, just in the emails alone, she's running a shadow government. She's massaging and colluding with other people to keep this stuff off of the Trump desk. And so she's concealing a material fact while doing her job. Violation 18 U.S. Code Section 1001. Now, if that doesn't work for you, how about this one? 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals or attempts to do so any document or other thing filed or deposited with any clerk or in any public office or with any judicial or public officer of the United States shall be fined and imprisoned. And whoever having custody of these records unlawfully conceals, again, shall forfeit and be disqualified from office. And so, again, she willfully did it. She did it unlawfully. She'll say it's lawfully. He just had a disagreement about the subsource. It just wasn't very well researched. And so we needed to give it another overview. But you go back to her motive, okay? She's calling it Russian disinformation if it's legitimate news about the badness of Joe Biden, and then calls it a bad source if it shows that the election is being rigged against President Trump, which would be a big problem for Joe Biden. So she protects Joe Biden, and she is concealing evidence in the process of doing that. And so maybe that one can be investigated by the DOJ. And then we have another one under Section 793, which may or may not apply. Let's see. Whoever for the purpose of obtaining information respecting national defense with intent or reason to believe that the information is to be used in the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation goes upon, enters, flies over, or otherwise obtains information about a bunch of things or other places connected with national defense or any other places, does one of the following. Basically retrieving this information. Now let's see what subsection B says. Whoever for the purposes of the aforesaid with the intent or reason to believe copies, takes, or obtains any other documents, or this is kind of Espionage Act stuff. Whoever for the purpose receives or obtains or receives any of this other information, anything connected, knowing or having reason to know, knowing that it will be disposed of by any person contrary to the provisions of this chapter. So maybe you receive this information, internal information, and then you dispose of it without giving it to the president. Whoever lawfully having possession of access to these things and gets information related to the national defense, if you communicate that to somebody who's not entitled to receive it, probably not going to apply. If you also transmit things, if you're entrusted with having lawful possession of this, maybe something here saying through gross negligence, if you permit it to be destroyed or if you have knowledge that it was illegally removed. This is largely about like espionage and documents. But if 2 or more persons conspire to violate any of the provisions, you shall be subject to punishment. And here's more on this one. So maybe this is more about taking materials and sending those to other people. But I think Trump may have been charged with one of these in the Mar-a-Lago case. But the point is, I think lots of charges. We didn't even talk about the big T word or any of these other things. The first one that's most obvious, Section 1001, falsely concealing a material fact, hiding it by any trick or scheme, saying I'm now running a literal shadow government. That is the trick. You're not entitled to do that. You are doing that. And other people are encouraging you to do that, making materially false or concealing activities in order to prevent the truth from coming out. So I would 100% endorse the Oversight Project's original criminal referral of Christopher Wray. And hopefully we find that Nikki Flores, the shadow government deep state hack, who then was also covering up for Joe Biden, did her job, got promoted by Christopher Wray for covering up for him, and then gets a promotion before she goes over to Microsoft to join Lisa Monaco and the other intelligence agency hacks, can also be implicated in these crimes because it is very antithetical to your job description. It is undermining your country, and it is a betrayal on a scale that is massive. And so there needs to be penalties for this. Can't let them continue to get away with it. Her messages, once again, I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point. An admission, and we've got a witness who received that message. So hopefully, as Trump mentioned, this is being looked at. It's under review. We'll see what else comes out on this one and whether statutes of limitations have already expired. But we need justice inside America. We got to deal with China. We got to deal with the Russians and the Iranians and everybody. But we need to have accountability for the enemies within. We can't ignore it any longer. So we're going to keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing this video so everybody can see how extensive and deep this goes. The president released a whole tranche of documents. This is one of the major reveals in it. And as more are processed and ingested, maybe we get a RICO case. Maybe we get a seditious conspiracy case from all of these people who are colluding in this. We're going to keep our eye on it. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, some other election news here today. And we've got updates out of the FBI and Fulton County and a couple of the other lists, a voter registration list lawsuits that we've got queued up here. And so let's take a look at these. Yeah, very interesting reporting here. Fulton County fraud investigation now ramping up. We know that Kash Patel sent hundreds of agents down there in a massive surge to go through the ballots. But what we didn't know is how they were going to process these hundreds of thousands of documents. One report over from the very leftist ProPublica is saying they may use AI technology to review the signatures on the mail-in ballots to see whether they match or not. And we've seen other historical examples of just how poorly the signatures actually do match. All you got to do is have a little bit of a squiggle on there, and they say, oh, that's close enough. That's great. Multiple people all filling out ballots, and signatures look different, but they all will count. Now, we saw this in Michigan. Trump released a bunch of documents that were now declassified, showing that they caught 8,000 to 10,000 fake registration forms that came in. Presumably, they did not catch them all. There was really no answer to that question. By the time you caught the 8,000 to 10,000 that showed up in a massive batch, how many others came through and were ultimately counted because they're not validating anything in Michigan, apparently? Just fill out a registration form, sign it, put a fake name, put a fake address, put a fake P.O. box number, whatever, and you get the registration going in. So now the FBI, according to this report from ProPublica, is using AI to go through all of these documents. And we're very curious what AI can do to help report on this. But we also saw that in Georgia, Interesting reports about duplicate and triplicate ballots being scanned in multiple times. We've read through affidavits under oath, sealed and signed by people who were there on scene, noticing the pristine ballots coming out that look like they just came hot off the printer, because as absentee ballots, you would expect some weathering on the document. You got to mail it to somebody, which means you fold it up, put it in an envelope, goes through the system, it gets banged up. Somebody opens it, writes it down, fills out their selections, maybe spills a little drip of coffee on there, closes it back up, goes back in to the mail system, and then is received by the Georgia county recorders. So all of that then would show a wear and tear on the ballot, which means it's actually got some validity to it. The problem is there were pristine ballots that did not have any of those markings or any of that wear and tear there, because people presume they were printed and they were just delivered. Then what we see is in the actual ballot images in Georgia that were not deleted, people reporting and sharing images on the internet of those coffee stains that I mentioned showing up in the exact same location on multiple ballots. That's weird, because the image should only be in there one time. Why is that coffee stain in multiple different images, which are different ballots that are counted? How come that happened? So maybe AI can help identify the coffee stains as well. Now, as part of Trump's continued push, they're using AI. ProPublica says maybe. They're exploring using artificial intelligence to assess the validity of this. And ProPublica is very leftist, so you're going to get the argument here. But the leaks from the hack FBI, we want Kash Patel to succeed and flush this garbage out of there. But it's the FBI, okay? There's only so much you can do there. So the internal moles inside the FBI are leaking to ProPublica. They're leaking to Ken Delanian from MS Now. They go to their favorite entities, give them inside information, which is what we can glean from. The effort, according to internal communications reviewed by this group and an agency tech specialist familiar with the work, focuses on comparing signatures on the ballot envelopes with signatures on other election documents, like the registration form. In particular, Trump has said this was all rigged, because it was. And again, rigging can be many things. It can be the CIA rigging it. It can be lawsuits that settle election rules via the judiciary rather than the legislature. That's rigging by the judges. That's rigging by the Mark Elias groups. It's rigging by the CIA. It doesn't have to be some hacker who goes in and flips a vote from one side to the other. It can be rigged. It can be fraudulent in more ways than one. So don't let them narrow the scope of that argument. Trump is set to deliver a speech Thursday. It was amazing. The signature matching initiative was under discussion as recently as June. Don't know what they're doing right now. A White House spokesperson declined to answer. So did the FBI. Now, the FBI has sent 260 analysts down there, according to an agency memo that they got. Again, more leaks going to the Times, going to MS Now. They've reported that some of them have been fired. We saw a husband and wife FBI team who said, we don't want to do this. We love election fraud. So we're just going to go focus on smearing other people as being Russian disinformation operatives, is what that couple wanted to do. But they're fired now, so they have more time to go start a blog and join Peter Strzok on MS Now and block the truth tellers on X. Whether done by people or technology, the accuracy of this is controversial. Signature matching is like a scam, okay? It's like putting your seatbelt on an airplane. Oh yeah, put your seatbelt on. You're gonna be fine if we hit a mountain. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. It's gonna secure your waist as the rest. Anyways, experts have raised serious concerns in legal cases about these results. How can signature matching identify voter fraud? Because people are just, writing on paper. Like, we read the arguments here. Where was that one out of? In other words, I think it was out of Michigan. Jocelyn Benson said it's really hard to match signatures, so we're going to change the rules to make it so that all signatures that come in have a presumption of validity. Okay, we're not going to check. We're just going to presume they're valid. She lost. She got sued. I think it might have been California where they also said in signature checks, you could just write like a mark. You could write an X, okay? Like, you're a disabled person is their argument. Oh, you're disabled. You've got Parkinson's. You're shaking like a leaf and you can't sign the document. So just make a mark and we'll count it. And then they also had another reason as to why signatures may not be valid. That's exactly where it was. California, we read the rules here. It's because, oh, they might be writing on a soft surface versus a hard surface. They might have gotten older, so their signature changes just due to age. They might be sick. They might be, in the car versus at home. So there's a bunch of reasons why these things can't match. But then if you find something that doesn't match, what do? You have to go take that one signature and essentially take it to like a judiciary board. And you need, I think, a unanimous decision that it doesn't match. So it goes from one person checking signatures or a machine checking signatures to like a body of 3 people who all then vote on it. Whatever the details are, it's specific. But basically, a bunch of hurdles in place before you can disqualify anyone, which means nothing gets disqualified because of the friction that it causes. They're sitting here looking at thousands of ballots. They're not going to want to challenge them. So they count. FBI technology specialist told ProPublica that the Bureau does have technology to compare images and that if it starts with a large enough data set, then a signature matching analysis could be somewhat accurate. And I think they're writing this article to undermine the validity, not of the signature checking that Georgia did, which I'm sure was virtually non-existent, but instead trying to say that Trump's analysis, right, the FBI's analysis of this is going to be a problem. Ultimately, the tech specialist said its results would turn on the threshold that was set for fraud. It's up to the builder of the system to define the guidelines, right? What is the rejection rate? How close do they have to be? If they're 20% close, can we accept it? Does it need to be 80% close? Which would lead to a bunch of additional rejections. Some staffers developing that strategy are trying to mitigate the political pressure by highlighting the limitations of broad signature analysis. See, they're saying you can't match them. Like, you're going to find a bunch of our signatures don't match. We counted them, but we can't match them. Arguing that those signature comparisons have been used in individual cases, they haven't been done on scale. Let's go. Yeah, that's exactly right. They have not been done on scale. The agency leaders are continuing to push forward. They're going to say, holy crap, you're going to find we weren't checking anything. There are grave concerns within the FBI that the results of the examination are going to be political, building on efforts to break guardrails, blah, blah, blah. Now, signature matching attracted controversy during 2020 when more Democrats than Republicans used mail-in ballots. Trump, of course, promoted true claims, my words, that Georgia officials and their failure to match signatures led to fraud. Gotta have signature checks is what he posted. Lawmakers did push for strict signature matching laws across America. They said many electors are concerned about rampant voter fraud, including subjective signature matching requirements. Oh yeah, these are close enough. The bill replaced signature matching with stricter forms of verification. Just use your ID. Don't need to worry about your signature. Just validate that you're using an ID. How complicated is that? While signature matching, because you're there in person, you say, oh yeah, it's you. Okay, great. Here's a ballot, go vote. Officials typically have only seconds to make a determination whether the mail-in envelope matches the license or the government record, sometimes relying on nothing more than comparing the shape and the proportion of the letters. But they change over time, and so they just wave them through. Come on in here. Investigations by journalists and others have said that actually signature matching leads to disproportionately high levels of rejected ballots by voters of color. Oh, man. Wow, that's crazy. So once again, it's the racist argument promoted by them. Black people and Hispanic people can't go get IDs. Women can't go get IDs if they got married. It's too complicated for them. And then black people and Hispanic people and evidently other colors can't sign documents and have their signatures match. So we can't actually have high thresholds of signature verification because it's going to be racist. Because black people sign their signatures different every single time. It's racist, okay? This conclusion is racist. Signatures need to match, but they say we can't check because it's going to be a bigoted system. As well as those that are new, young, old, politically unaffiliated, disabled, the Parkinson's guy. Signature matching efforts sometimes disqualify more legitimate than illegitimate ballots. So we shouldn't do it. A political scientist testifying as an expert, so they're trying to invalidate the signature check, right? They're going to say, Cash and the FBI will come out. They'll identify a bunch of problems with these signatures. They don't match at all. They'll say, well, we had a reason to do that. it is the same person, but we just couldn't match the signatures because we didn't want to be racist. Saying there was also a signature matching law that someone said that their analysis said that 32 legitimate ballots were blocked for every illegitimate one. Wild. So if that is such a problem, then maybe signature checking is just completely useless. So maybe we should get rid of that and actually use IDs. Signatures are one of the most difficult forensic sciences, and I don't think AI is going to be able to do this. We don't need it to match them. We just need it to show how not matched they are. A 2009 report also said that the basis for handwriting comparisons needs to be strengthened. Defenders of matching says that computer analysis became increasingly accurate and provides a practical and necessary check against fraud. However, even they caution the technique is only as good as the people using it. Signature matching technology is now good enough to make your head explode, said somebody. From Periscript. But he still said that trained human specialists should review about 10% of what the machine is doing to validate. Using AI here is a new frontier. The tech specialist at the Bureau had discussed how to employ it with experts across the government. Don't know what system they're using. If they use Anthropic or OpenAI, it's going to find for Biden every single time. You're going to say, we didn't even ask you about Joe Biden. It says he won the election. He said, oh, we're only asking you to check the signatures. We're only asking you, like, what is the weather today? Anthropic, Claude is like, Joe Biden's the best president ever. White people are bad. This is a new and novel approach for the Bureau. They're shopping it around. Others who are experts say it's going to require a specialized system. Experts also said that while an AI system could conceivably offer some advantages, its accuracy would depend on the quality and the quantity of the signatures. And so our signature matching presumably is going to be better than theirs, and it's going to identify a bunch of fraud. They're nervous. The source said, however, that they could also incorporate additional records like driver's licenses. And there's a high degree of noise in these things. I'm not sure if there's enough information to do better. Activists have lobbied for a closer examination of the 2020 ballots that we have been screaming about, claiming in a report that election officials willfully ignored the verification procedures. Then the FBI went in, got their hands on it, and wow, look at this. Reports by an independent monitor and the States United Democracy Center. Do you know who runs the States United Democracy Center? Or at least who founded it? I'm not sure who's running it now. Yeah, these hacks, man. You know who runs it? Norm Eisen, or he founded it at least. So he puts together this 58-page report, and then the hack ProPublica cites this thing. Let's see. Is his name on this? Oh, look who it is. It's Stephen Richer from Arizona. Incredible, incredible. This is the same hack that also then turned around and tried to strip Justin Heap, the incoming county recorder, of his power. Absolutely outstanding. What a joke. And so he is an author on this fake report. Absolutely a joke. He's the guy who was also, I think he started some very anti-Trump organizations. You know, they all came out and they said, we're not anti-Trump, we're just pro-democracy, and we trust the outcomes of our elections. Yeah, so he got fired from his job. Justin Heap got elected to actually fix the elections after his terrible stewardship as the Maricopa County recorder. And on his way out, he then divested his own office of a bunch of power so that Justin Heap didn't have any power in order to create reforms. And so let me just look up States United. I want to see if Norm Eisen is still on there. But he was one of the original founders. I'm like almost like 90% sure on that. But I don't think he's there anymore. I think he founded it. He founds these things and then gets off the board. So, yeah. Look at all these people, man. Wild. Janet Napolitano, Stephen Richer, Michael Steele, States United. They get millions and millions of dollars in funding and then wage these types of election fights all across the country. And Republicans are still playing catch up on that. So, all right, so they wrote this thing, and another independent monitor, let's see who this one is that they're referencing. Seven Hills Strategies. Not sure who that is. But all right, so anyways, AI is underway, may or may not be being utilized there in Fulton County. We're excited to see it. The reason this article was published is to pre-butt the accuracy and the validity of it. So once FBI comes out and says, oh, yep, there's fraud, signatures don't match at all, it's like a 90% not match score, they'll say, well, you can't check anyways. Look at these experts. It's very complicated to do that. So one way to solve all of this, of course, is with the SAVE Act. But we also have other methodologies like Trump's executive order, where he said we're going to create a master citizenship list. And then that list will be deployed to the states. They can use it or lose it, or if they don't want to use it, then they can deliver their own mail. Okay, they don't have to use the Postal Service because the Postal Service will only be accepting ballots for people who are on the list. Now, this case came out of Massachusetts. This is the Obama judge, Indira Talwani, who struck down large portions of Trump's actual executive order, saying and Trump, of course, is appealing this right now, but she says everything is still canceled. We're not going to let you fix the elections right now at all. And so the DOJ just submitted a notice to her. They said, all right, Indira, saying we are still moving forward at the Postal Service. We've now created a mailing standard and submitted that for inspection by the public and comment. And the scheduling is happening today. So we've got it queued up. Now, in addition to this is not going to take effect until a final rule is published. All we're doing is acknowledging that we're working on this. We know it's an active litigation. We're not going to ultimately use this rule until the litigation is over. And this is about the Postal Service. The Postal Service wants to change some rules and basically say that we're not going to accept mail fraud in the form of ballots. You got to be on the list if you want a ballot to be delivered using federal services. We're also going to add in some additional requirements on the outside of the envelope so that we know that there are actual ballots inside there. We want some barcodes so we can track the flow. Where are the ballots going to? Where are they returning from? So we can identify abnormalities in return rates and root out the fraud, just like mail does in general. So same type of protections. She canceled it. The new Postal Service publication has now been released. They say, this is our privacy system of records. We have to document how we're going to protect your privacy rights. We understand that this is being appealed. We've got active litigation. So it's Indira Talwani largely. There's another judge called Casper. And then there's Sparky Suki from Trinidad in DC. If the Postal Service issues a rule to amend these things, it's going to become effective. We've got litigation going on once we get a final rule and more. Saying, here's what we're going to be doing. On March 31st, 26, Trump passed a new executive order ensuring citizenship verification and integrity in elections. Following that, we issued a proposed rule that would apply uniform standards for the mailing of absentee ballots to make sure we're following federal law. In conjunction with this rule, we're going to amend the mail manual, and we're going to maintain a list of each individual's address, the unique intelligent mail barcodes printed on the outbound and the return ballot envelope so that you have a chain of custody. Ballot comes in, Postal Service scans it, boom, got it, goes to this person, this address. Ballot goes to that address, they pick it up, scan it, comes back from that address, back into the system, back through the Postal Service, back to the counter. And other political subdivisions also will have a participation list. Make sure that they're citizens before they get on the list. Otherwise, we're not picking up the mail. If the rulemaking results in a final rule and this new privacy rule takes effect, the information would be provided to the Postal Service by the chief election official of each state or each individual entity like an election official from the state authorized by the chief election officer. So that's what we're doing. And it's now available for public comment. Not long. Purpose is to help determine adherence to federal law. Also, to receive a list of people to whom mail-in or absentee balloting can be sent to, and to provide election officials with a portal. If they say somebody's not on the list who should be on the list, you have a portal, go add them to the list. This would apply to federal elections or any authorized election of that state or political subdivision. These are the rules. These are the safeguards. So it is marching through as the DOJ continues to appeal. Now, we also have Sparky's case. So out of DC, we have the League of Women Voters, one of these, nonprofit groups that is created to file election lawsuits. They sued Homeland and Sparky granted them their outcome. Problem is, we had another judge in Florida, a guy called T. Kent, who said, we actually are going to allow our states in our district to use the SAVE database. Trump mentioned this, saying check your lists against the SAVE database so that we can validate these people are actually citizens before they go on your list. Sparky from Trinidad and Tobago, who's a likely citizen of that foreign country still, even though she's a federal judge here governing our elections, she said that whole system for the entire nation is vacated. You can't use it because it's a violation of privacy rights or something. And so the DOJ just responded. The DOJ is kind of having to thread a very fine line on this, to fight to say that we're in compliance with your rule. And so they said here in response, Judge, we're caught in a hard place here. Okay, we have vigorously opposed Florida plaintiffs' motion to enforce the settlement agreement on multiple grounds. But the judge made us impose the settlement in Florida that required us to turn the database back on. We didn't want to do it. The judge made us do it. We said a bunch of things. We didn't breach the settlement. We were complying with you. We were doing what Sparky told us to do. We were not going against this other judge who said turn the system back on. Sparky says off, T. Kent says on. They say we talked to him. We said we're not violating it. We got ordered by you, so we're trying to comply with you. We also made the argument Social Security is not a party, and we said that they don't even have the right to sue here. They need to go to the Court of Federal Claims. And we argued that at least in Florida, they should defer a ruling until we appeal your order. But everything down there was rejected. He said, I don't care. You have to immediately comply with this and turn the SAVE system back on for the Florida plaintiffs. Now, the U.S. believes that this injunction in Florida was an error, but disagreement with that court doesn't mean we can't comply with it. And so just as we've done earlier with your order, an order that we also respectfully disagree with. So we disagree with what Florida's doing. We disagree with what you're doing. But we tried to come into compliance with both of you guys. Now they here want to make that more difficult. They want an injunction that would order us to violate Florida, and you should reject that. First, we haven't violated your order of a vacatur. Plaintiff's motion ignores well-established differences between a vacatur and an injunction. We fully complied with your order. We immediately treated vacated agency actions as inoperative. And as you deprived us of legal authority to continue the program, they halted it nationwide. But then Florida gave independent legal authority, in fact, a new legal duty to restore access to Florida, Ohio, Iowa, and Indiana. So you said, you can't do this, so vacate everything you've changed. Okay, we did that, but then we're done. Like there's no continuing injunction there. We don't have a continuing obligation from you. You issued the vacatur and it's gone. So now he came in and said, since you were done with you, he turned it back on. The fact that the government took action required by another court does not mean we're out of compliance with you. We already fulfilled that. We're done. In other words, their filing is really saying, you want a permanent injunction that prohibits us from doing this everywhere. But that language is only in their proposed order. You didn't enter that. That was limited to the milder remedy of a vacatur. And because of an earlier in time vacatur cannot overcome later in time jurisdiction, the United States is in compliance with you, even if 4 out of the 50 states have now been hampered as a result of Sparky's decision. So second, in the alternative, even if the defendants are out of compliance with this court's order, the only reason they would be out of compliance is because the partial non-compliance is because the judge is making us do it. It's undisputed that Homeland is bound by Florida. And contrary to Mark Elias in the League of Women Voters, the Social Security Administration is not a party in Florida. That doesn't solve any problems. It's undisputed. Homeland cannot fully comply with the injunction without help from Social. And under these extraordinary circumstances, where any violation of this court's order is resulting directly from good faith efforts to comply with Florida, it would be inequitable to grant them their motion to have Sparky say they have to overrule another judge. She has no jurisdiction over that other judge. She's in D.C., they're in Florida. Third, also important principles of equity are here. Don't issue a conflicting injunction. It bears repeating. They seek an order that would command the federal government to literally obey a court's order. Any other approach would put us in an impossible dilemma. And the fact that the Florida court rejected similar arguments would not justify this court exacerbating the problems by creating your own injunction. And after all, two wrongs don't make a right, which is what my mom told me since I'm 4 years old. And that is especially true here, as the Florida court at least did not order Homeland to violate an injunction or to take actions that we lack authority to take. And so any new injunction must comply with the principles specifically set out in Trump versus Casa, meaning any injunctive relief, this is why the judge did a vacatur instead of an injunction, it should be limited to, if you do issue an injunction, Judge, which is why she does not want to do this, you have to limit it. The Supreme Court said no more nationwide injunctions. You have to limit it to the plaintiff associations. That's it, not the entire nation. And because there was no evidence in the record that these people live in Florida, Ohio, Iowa, or Indiana, you can't limit us down in Florida anyways. And so in sum, although the U.S. respectfully disagrees with you and Florida, we have complied, and we're going to continue to comply with all outstanding orders to the greatest extent possible. Their motion should be denied in full. League of Women Voters should get out. If the court is inclined to disagree, it should at least defer this until the Court of Appeals decides this thing. We've got a full brief that's due next week on Monday, and we're going up to the Supreme Court probably on this too as well. This court should be especially hesitant to order the U.S. to violate an injunction as a means of enforcing its own vacatur order when the validity of that earlier vacatur order will soon be considered by the appellate courts in a very nice filing. So, Judge, if you issue an injunction, it's actually going to have less scope in its effect because you're going to have to limit it to the League of Women Voters and you can't impose it across the entire country. And these groups are everywhere, okay? These nonprofit groups that have standing, it's like, oh, we're a voting rights group, so we can sue on all election cases, all created by the left in order to file these lawsuits. And then you get foreign-born dual citizen judges like Sparky Suki from Trinidad and Tobago who comes down and cancels the SAVE database for the entire stinking country, even though she's just a DC judge. And other judges have even essentially, as we've read here, given a better justification for why the program is valid and lawful, but she turns it off because of my privacy rights, doesn't want anybody to be checked against the database to enfranchise more fraud. That's their party. That's these judges. So we're going to keep our eye on this one. FBI now investigating and continuing to peruse through the pallets full of ballots that were seized out there in Fulton County. And the election litigation on Trump's EO continues. We'll keep our eye on all of these stories and more. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, one final update, a little bit of change of pace on this one. And then we'll hear from you and see what you have to say about all of this and more. Another scandal for Ruben Gallego. First, he was busted being friends with Bang Bang Swalwell, who made Bang Bang with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy. Then when he was asked about it, he denied anything related to knowing what was actually happening with Swalwell. He said he's a friend, we like the guy, we endorse him, we support him completely. Then it turns out a bunch of allegations came out against Bang Bang, saying that he was really doing some illegal bang banging, not just with a Chinese spy, but against the will of other women who started to emerge and say, this dude is a monster. So then Gallego came out and he said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't know anything about this nature of this person. Yes, we were friends. Yes, we did a bunch of things together. We went over to Africa, took our shirts off and rode on camels together, taking pictures for everybody. We went to the Super Bowl. We created joint fundraising vehicles that we raised a bunch of money for in order to go to the Super Bowl game. And now we're learning that apparently he was also making Bang Bang. According to the New York Post, Bang Bang with other House staffers. Sexual relationships. Two peas in a pod out there between Gallego and Swalwell. Two House staffers, evidently not his. Maybe they were swapping staffers or something, which is just disgusting. But this guy now getting called out from the New York Post. And when we watch this guy squirm in front of the cameras. We had a feeling that there was something more here. Nancy Mace now saying the same thing. Now I understand why he was convulsing while being asked about Swalwell. And we watched this in the immediate aftermath. And here is what Gallego looked like when he was asked about his best friend.
What were the
It was flirty. That was flirty.
And that was when? About what year was it?
I mean, that was we've heard that throughout.
Senator, you just said thank you so much. I want to clarify because in the beginning,
we'll go back there.
In the beginning, you said when you first heard these rumors a few weeks ago, that's when you called him. Then you said you've heard these rumors for years. So which one is it, Senator?
So I heard rumors of him being flirty.
And that wasn't an issue enough for you to not trust him to watch your kids or be close with him?
Because, you hear this, and then when you're close to somebody and you know his wife, you see this. You see that relationship. You know that, it maybe just isn't true.
Have you asked him about it prior to this few weeks?
I asked him about it a few weeks ago when it started coming up online.
Why
when you ask him about it if you're running his campaign, sir?
That she had no idea about
What were the rumors?
You can see it in his body language. He wants to jump out the window. He is so uncomfortable because he knows there's a lot more to this story that he is not letting on to. And now apparently it's coming out. So a potential 2028 presidential candidate engaged in indictments with at least 2 House staffers. And his, quote, very flirtatious habits, just like Bang Bangs, may come back to haunt him. He's a 46-year-old lawmaker, admitted to the 2 relationships, both with aides to Texas Democrats. He's from Arizona. So swapping staffers to one source, while a second person said that they had recently learned of other romantic entanglements. Post got a third source who confirmed one of the dalliances, both of which are said to have been consensual and occurred during his decade representing Phoenix in the House of Representatives. So consensual. And he may or may not have been married, maybe not married at this time. The relationships are part of a broader pattern of mistakes and missteps and judgment calls, one source said, noting the imbalanced power dynamics of an elected official dating staffers. One of the women was in her 20s and was much younger than Ruby at the time. One person said, who else could be out there? Last month, the Senate Ethics Committee, he's now in the Senate, dismissed a complaint brought against Ruby by Anna Paulina Luna that said that there were campaign finance violations and other sexual misconduct against him. He got elected back in 24. The panel was chaired by Lankford, Mr. Amnesty himself, didn't ask about his relationship with staffers, likely because they didn't know about it, instead focused squarely on what Luna represented to them. Ethics looked in the wrong place, they said. He's banging staffers. Gallego's office and the 2 House staffers did not respond to a request for comment. Minutes after this article was published, the senator gave a non-denial to an NBC News journalist on Capitol Hill saying, quote, I'm not going to engage in gossip, right there. I'm not going to engage in gossip. Is it true, though? I'm not going to engage in gossip. Okay, so didn't deny it. So there you go. Saying more that when asked if the Post reporting was accurate, he said, I'm not going to engage in gossip. Now, Chuck Schumer was asked about it. He said, I'm not focused on this right now. When asked by Fox News about it, sources said it's believed both relationships occurred while he was unmarried, which is different than Bang Bang. Rumors have also swirled about Ruben's personal life following Swalwell's life. And this is kind of how it started with Swalwell. It's like this guy's sleeping around on his wife. This guy's like a, abuser, but it's consensual. He's sleeping with staff. He's sleeping with people he shouldn't have. But then it turns out a lot more came out on that story. So we'll see if this follows the same pattern. Amid claims by multiple women that Swalwell harassed them and even assaulted them, he denied any knowledge of the conduct. Luna claimed in a CBS News interview April 16th that a woman was preparing to speak out about an incident, involving Ruben and Swalwell at the same time. And the event was sexual in nature, allegedly, says Luna. Gross. These dudes, sick. On April 23rd, Luna claimed on social media, quote, I have now heard of 4 women who have had multiple and uncomfortable, inappropriate advances, comments about touching, etc. from Ruben Gallego, senator out of Arizona. Gallego responded to the Ethics Committee's dismissal. He said these are just right-wing conspiracies peddled by far-right activists like Luna and the White House, and he demands an apology. Now there's more evidence, even more than there was before there, Ruby. The good news about D.C. is everyone talks, and eventually the reporters come forward with your texts. Luna said, do yourself a favor and keep raising for your legal defense fund. Once a creep, always a creep. You're going to need it. Now, he married his current wife, Sydney, in June 21, 3 years after they met in 18 at a congressional baseball game. Yeah, and this dude was wild. He filed for divorce from his first wife, Kate, 10 days before Christmas in 2016. She was 9 months pregnant. He's like, I'm out of here. Good luck with the kid. I got to go sleep with some staffers now. The divorce was granted in April 2017. What a jerk. So that's with the new wife, Sydney, and their kids. There's Ruben Moore. Luna responded to the post saying, time to resign, Ruben. Clock is ticking there, bucko. Glad people are going on the record about this creep, saying this scumbag doesn't deserve the privilege of representing the people of Arizona. Said Abe Amadei, another House rep from AZ. Ruben should follow his buddy Swalwell's lead and resign, just like he may have followed in other situations. Someone else, Jason Chaffetz of Utah, former rep, said Congress needs to step up, do the right thing, and force him to get out. Relationships between lawmakers and their own staff members were banned in 2018. And there's a post-Swalwell push to ban all relationships with all congressional staff. He's going to say, it's not my staff, so what if I went over to Texas? Encounters between reps and their staff from other offices generally are not banned, though, by the ethics rules. Other conduct like harassment is not allowed. Internal investigations can turn up damaging information. The Post reported in April that Jimmy Gomez from California, a close friend of Gallego and Swalwell, they called themselves the Cool Kids Clique. These dudes were like, they must have been bullied or something. Like they get into Congress, they're like, we're just going to sleep with everybody. Like finally someone's paying attention to them in their lives. So now they're going to just go like live lavish. This guy was spotted kissing a Swalwell aide at a DC House party in 2023. It's like House of Cards. These people are disgusting. So Gomez confessed in June to cheating on his wife, should be immediately thrown out of Congress. Immediately. At least, right? You're gone. You're a cheater. You cheat on your wife. You made matrimonial vows until death do us part, and you're a cheater. So you should just be gone instantly. And for some reason, we just kind of, excuse it. Learned of other allegations of sexual misconduct against him while investigating the initial report. If the ethics committee comes back and says we are opening an investigation, question 1 for Ruben is, did you ever have relationships with any staff member during your time in Congress? I wouldn't be surprised if there are more that he has to list. And he can't lie about that because, it's a sworn statement. A Democrat operative who has interacted with Ruben said, she found news of the relationships not surprising. I have witnessed firsthand his very flirtatious nature after a couple of drinks. Maybe he thinks he's being charming. I don't know. Guy gives me the creeps. I've always steered clear. And there's that one video of Ruben. There's he's out at a news event, like a hot dog event or something, or eat pickles or something. And this news anchor is eating a pickle. And he grabs her hand and shoves it in her mouth. He's like, yeah, shove that pickle in there. She's like, what are you touching me for, freak? So again, if he's going to cover up for Swalwell and just stand there and squirm, you got to just believe that there's a lot more there. There's a long bipartisan tradition of members of Congress having personal baggage. This other guy, Scott DeJarlis, Republican out of Tennessee, has been reelected repeatedly, despite revelations that he had urged abortions for both his wife and his mistress. Wild. Totally disqualifying. Tennessee, many members of Congress resign in the face of these scandals, including Katie Hill, who stepped down in 2019 due to a relationship with a campaign aide. Remember her? That girl was a freak. Earlier this year, Tony Gonzalez resigned after one of his staffers lit herself on fire. In addition to Ruben's personal life, he faces another headache in the form of an investigation, apparently misusing campaign funds to go to the Super Bowl in 23. Then go to St. Bart's, take his kids to Disney World and Disneyland, all on the campaign dime. He said that the Trump DOJ is targeting him for political reasons. Yeah, I'm sure. Despite the controversies, another Democratic insider said that they still hope that he still hopes to occupy the Oval Office someday. He's going to have to work on his voice a bit because it's really hard to listen to. He wants to, but it's getting harder. If he changes his behavior and actually locks in, he could do it. It would be hard, but I don't see it right now. It's unfortunate. Oh, yeah. Ruben Gallego is president of America. Yeah, I think we got a better chance of AOC hitting that before he would, which is to say, it's a long shot. So that's what Ruben is up to. Of course, convulsing and very nervous about the truth coming out. Schumer didn't want to answer any questions about it, and he just moved on, saying it's unmarried. Okay, so what if he's sleeping with staffers? I'm not focused on this right now. Bad headline for Ruben. Lots of gossip going on out there. So we'll keep our eye on this story. This might be, again, another kind of drip, drip, drip situation. It started this way with Swalwell, and then we woke up, and turns out Swalwell's making essentially dropping out videos after he looks like really sweaty with his shirt unbuckled, like maybe after another attack on a woman or something. But very strange stuff happening in that party. Of course, they just endorse it, look the other way. They don't care. It's blue no matter who. It's not even a big deal. And multiple sources now revealing this. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for joining, as we do. All right, let's see what you guys say about all of this and more. It's a beautiful and an amazing Friday. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us for all of this election news. This will be our show of the day, so we'll just leave it here when we're done. And then we'll, of course, come back tomorrow for our Saturday-only members stream to see our friends on Saturday. And if you missed the stream last night, we did like 3.5 hours on all of the documents. So be sure to check that out if you're looking for something else to watch, because today we just went through like 3 pages of materials. Really, maybe one of the biggest portions of the dump, or, I'd say each bucket had its kind of own big document. So check out what we covered yesterday. We went 3.5 hours late in the night, and we didn't read everything in every document, but we looked at every single document that was released and read most of it. So who is joining us on the day? It's a beautiful day. Hey, there's Trump in the house, man. Every time I see the dance, I start to have the YMCA in my head, in the house. Hey, Colleen Daly, what's up? Thank you for becoming a member. Colleen Daly in the house. Chris Kinsey in the house. Great to see you both. Thank you for becoming supporters. We'll catch you tomorrow on the Saturday members only morning stream, and we're looking forward to that. Schmarm, what's up, Schmarm? Mr. Potato Head gives us all us bald people a bad name. Well, shout out to our bald kings out there, man. He's Mr. Potato Head, not because of the baldness, essentially. It also has to do with the shape of his face and the fact that he has the IQ of a potato. So it's multiple layers, It's like layers to this. Shout out to the bald kings out there, man. You guys look amazing. Sometimes I'm like, man, that's a good look, man. You look aggressive. Kind of looks aggressive, especially got a little facial hair there. It's like, man, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool look. Like get a Harley or something. It's cool. All right, so Schmarm, thank you for the donation, my man. Shout out to all the bald kings out there. Amazing. Voice of the people. Clinton was on Rachel Maddow begging China to help the Dems win the elections. From Voice. I think I remember that, right? And wasn't Mark Milley also calling, backstabbing the president, calling the Chinese and saying, we got everything under control here. Executed your plan there, President Xi. It all went off without a hitch. We're going to be in charge soon. Yeah, a lot of interfacing going on with the Chinese. Hey, Mosheg, what's up? In Israel, the elections have the poll workers cross-checking the voters on the voter rolls to make sure they haven't voted with voter ID. That makes total sense. Yeah, and yeah, do they have states over there? Do they do they break up the country? I know it's kind of a small geographic nation. Is it just one national election, or is it a bunch of different smaller elections into subcomponents? No idea. But yeah, that's another concern. What if you're registered in your home state, but then they take all of your information duplicate your ID, go register in Georgia, and now you've got you're on the rolls in both places. Are they cross-referencing and checking? Like, does Georgia enter into a validation against the other 49 states to make sure you're not registered there? I don't think so. I mean, that's kind of even a tricky thing with like driver's licenses, right? We have this thing called an interstate compact where the states communicate. You get a driver's license suspension or a DUI or a felony warrant, it goes into a nation system, and then the other states can kind of ping to that. But when and how they ping and what they do about it is kind of up to the state, so it may not be as transferable as other things. So interesting question there. Yeah. So it makes a lot more sense than what we're doing here. Got to actually check things, and voter ID is very reasonable. So Voice, what's up? It's time for the big T charges, man. Yeah, it does feel very traitorous. A lot of traitorous behavior out there, Voice. Well, I'm happy to start with just section 1001, material concealment. Start there and then we can work our way up. Seditious conspiracy. They got the Proud Boys for seditious conspiracy. Why not these FBI agents? Relantel, hey man, late start, great stream last night, just finished. Amazing, Relantel. Yeah, I thought it was good. I really appreciated everybody joining us and going through all of the documents. We got a lot of stuff. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff done. So thank you, Relantel. 29 months as a member. Thank you for being here for so long. You're incredible. Rick D. Remember this one from Rob's show last night? Guess where she works now? I think you're talking about, yeah, right there, Nikki Flores. She works at Microsoft, senior executive with over 20 years of security experience. Is that 51K in the chat? I think it is. What's up, 51K? Good to see you. We got Nikki Flores. Yeah, she's at Microsoft. What's up, Rick D? Shadow government Nikki. Isn't that something? Just goes and lands at Microsoft, just like Lisa Monaco did. Lisa Monaco was one of the biggest hacks under Merrick Garland, who orchestrated all of the lawfare, and runs right over to Microsoft. Just amazing. Rick D, the Clinton judge who released the hijacker, has died suddenly? What the heck? We just covered that case yesterday. He was old. I think he was on retirement status, right? I couldn't find a picture of him. A Clinton-appointed judge suddenly passed away. A legal source in Miami and the law clerk, we read it here, for the chief judge. Wow. Confirmed. Senior district judge John E. Steele passed away at the age of 77. Terrible. We don't wish death upon anybody, even activist judges. Cause of death remains unknown at this point. Well, I don't know. Maybe that illegal alien went and hijacked his airplane. Back on July 8th, he was appointed to the bench by Clinton and infuriated everybody by releasing a Cuban plane hijacker. We read that case here. He said that ICE could pick him back up, but they just couldn't deport him quickly enough, so they had to release him. So, sorry, he's dead. That's not good news, but that is interesting. Very interesting timing on that one. Thank you, Rick D, for that. Hey, Good Logic was on Timcast last night. I think you do great on there. Thank you, DeHook. I think that'd be a ton of fun. Yeah, we'd love to go check it out. We're nearby, so we could just drive over there. I do need to reach out to them and say, I don't know what. I'd like to come onto your show there, Tim. What do you think? So shout out to Good Logic, man. That's a pretty amazing conversation. I'll have to check it out. A lot of fun. And it'd be good to, see how Joe's doing. Haven't talked to him in a long time. So shout out to Good Logic, my friend. Right next door on YouTube at The Following Pro, like the following program. Good Logic in the house. Thank you for that, DeHook. And shout out to Joe. That's pretty amazing. Michael O'Connell. There is a procedure for the destruction of classified burn bags, and it is time sensitive. Finding burn bags years after should have been destroyed tells me that there was a patriot that protected them. That's amazing, Michael. Yeah, I don't know what the story is on that. Like, why would you put sensitive information in a burn bag and then not actually burn it, right? It's kind of like putting a big red arrow saying like, oh, incriminating files are like right in this bag, right? It's like a treasure box. Like the first place you check would be like unburned burn bags. So they just consolidated a bunch of evidence. Like, wouldn't you want to put it like if you want to conceal the records so that nobody looks into them, you would say like, put them in just like a banker's box, and you would just say like lunch receipts on the side and just shove it in the back of the closet, like lunch receipts, and then put a bunch of lunch receipts on top, you know? But you put it into a burn bag, and then everybody looks in the burn bag. They go, oh, yeah, that's where they are. It's like a treasure box. Just open the box up. It's filled with treasures. You know, it's like a time off request. Okay, whatever. Put a bunch of stuff on there and then put all the good stuff beneath it because you can't burn it. So I don't know, but that's interesting. Thanks for the details on that, Michael. It does seem interesting. Like, why didn't they just burn it? But I'm glad they didn't. Unless it's like a false distraction. It's like a red herring. Oh, here's all the bad evidence, but we burned all the other stuff. Like, you want to burn everything, but you leave a couple behind as a false, distraction. Something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully there's much more to come on all these stories. Rick D shared this one from the Skiff. Fulton County ordered just over 1 million extra ballots for 2020, but they seem to only have 284,901 left. What happened to the other 700,000 ballots? No one seems to know. That's interesting from Rick D. Yeah, I'll have to look at that link. Yeah, Georgia, man. Georgia, there's just so much problems going on down there. And yeah, this came from a statement of facts here. I'll have to find that document. Did we read this one? Very interesting. I'll have to look up that document too. So many documents related to Georgia. It's hard to keep tabs on them all. But thank you, Rick D, for that one, my man. Johnny Burns, what's up, Johnny? Thank you for becoming a member. We'll see you tomorrow on the Saturday members only morning stream. It's Saturday already. My goodness, it'll be a good one. This old guy says under 18 U.S. Code 2071, Nikki Flores should spend the next 36 months at minimum in federal custody. Did we pull that one up? There it is. If you conceal or remove and carries it away in public office, you shall be fined or in prison not more than 3 years. And so it sounds like you read another portion of that. 36 months. There you go. Yep. This old guy. Good to see you. Thank you for the nice comment today. Something. I'll take 2071. No problem. Or 1001. Good with that one too. Hey, what's going on? BS unfortunate initials. Your name is BS. That's pretty cool. Please, Justice Department, grand juries on these bad actors, man. Something would be good. Thank you for being here, BS, for 23 months. It's a long time, coming up on 3 babies. So, yeah, I mean, Trump, instructed them to start looking into these things. There are statute of limitations on these things. Like a lot of these happened in 2020 or in the aftermath of 2020. So the clock is ticking. And as we've suspected, I think that there will be I'm hoping if we don't get anything soon, it's because the elections are too close. So charges will come after the elections. Remember, most of the Trump charges came in 23. After the 2022 midterms. It just takes time to develop these things. So we'll see. The average mountain man, wouldn't this fall under a conspiracy to conceal material facts? Yeah, I think you could lump the whole thing under a conspiracy as well. So conspiracy, can have other crimes underneath it. Like it's a conspiracy to do these other criminal actions. And the conspiracy is just really 2 or more people conspiring in order to commit another crime. So then you'd have these overt acts and the cover up of the overt acts. And so conspiracy can also incorporate the cover up of the conspiracy in order to make it a conspiracy. It's like an overt crime. It's a covert conspiracy. And then the most recent overt act of the cover up. So a conspiracy, is like overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. So then the most recent overt act would be the most recent point that the statute would start from, rather than relating all the way back. That's what they're actually, I think, pursuing in Fulton County. Because in Fulton County, they opened up one of the images, changed something in the image because the hashing of the image no longer matched, and it was most recently updated in like 2024. Why do you need to go into ballot images and change something in 2024 from a ballot image that came from 2020? So it's a cover-up that extends the SOL. So I think you're onto something there, the average mountain man. Hopefully they're on it too. Jacob Guestenter in the house. Thank you, Jacob, for the donation today. You're amazing. Thank you for joining us on the show. Sweet Kitten. Hey, what's up, Sweet Kitten, man? Lots of new supporters today. Excited to see everybody tomorrow. We got a couple things going tomorrow. So we'll do a 10 a.m. Eastern time, members only stream. And then we have our virtual baby shower at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Open to you if you want to join. We're going to have a bunch of people joining us. So we'd love to have you come join us. We've got some activities planned, and Alexis's mother is here to help us facilitate. We've got some Zoom things going on. And so if you want to join us, the link is in the description. There's one link there that says all links. Click that. It will take you to like a landing page. There will be a Zoom registration link there. You can register all free. We would ask, I think the only thing is if you want to make, you don't have to do this, but if you want to make a selection, if you want to make a pick, like you think it's going to be a boy or a girl, you can wear blue or you can wear pink or, something like that. If you have, a little desire for some flair. So we're going to do two things tomorrow. So hopefully you can join us for them both, but don't need to be a member to join up on the virtual live stream. Just click the link and register so that you get the actual, Zoom link. Hey, Terry Yellowhorse. What's up, Terry? 47 months. That is a long time. That is 5 babies and another one cooking. Amazing, Terry. That's a long time. We've been through a lot together. And didn't it feel good after all these years to kind of come full circle last night and get some truth and some validation on what we saw? A lot of people kind of poo-pooing it. We already knew all this. Okay, we did know a lot of it, but now we can see the documents. Like we can see, they literally pulled that out of his files. Great. So good to see you, Terry. Thanks for being here for 47 months. We're like different people now after that time. Spuds, as a poll inspector for about 25 years, the introduction of electronic poll books has made it difficult for people to produce a signature that can match the one from the previous years. However, since the signature is digital, perhaps AI can be used to help verify it. That is true. Like the digital signatures, they never look like they match. Like, when you go sign a receipt like at Lowe's or Home Depot, I sign, it's like 3 squiggles. It's like those old video games when you're like walking through a room. It's like 1 polygon. I'm like, wow, okay, this is great. Pong, beep, boop, ding, boop, ding, boop, ding, boop, ding. Kind of those. And you sign it, it doesn't look anything like it. So I've seen some of that too. But if it doesn't match, then why should it be counted if signature matching is the safety mechanism to confirm that they're valid votes? If it can't do that, then why are we using it at all? Maybe we should have voter ID. Rob, what's up, Rob? Good to see you. Very nice to see you in the house. Thanks for the donation, Rob, and for being a member. The original Kelly Sue. Have you seen anyone famous in DC yet? Oh, yeah. I think a lot of famous people. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. I saw Lisa Murkowski. I was coming out of a Chinese restaurant picking up some takeout, and I saw her. We made eye contact. I don't think she recognized me at all. Obviously, why would she? But I was like, oh, yeah, it's you. I also saw the other day, walked by Lauren Boebert, and man, that was an experience for sure. Lauren Boebert, walked by her. She, she was on the phone, but she was, she had an outfit on, I'll tell you. Wild. So anyways, yeah, I've seen stuff like that. And there was, we've been to events. We've gone to a bunch of events. We've gone to a bunch of events, and there's been a bunch of people at these events, shake hands. I met Jeffrey Clark yesterday at an event. We got his information and his phone number. So Jeffrey Clark is going to come on the show. Excited about that. So a lot of stuff out there. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting town. So what's up? The original Kelly Sue. I'm not saying her outfit was bad. I was just like, whoa. It just caught me off guard. That's all I'm saying. Danny Murphy posts front page article on the speech is painful. From Danny Murphy. Like the Washington Post. Yeah, they're all like that. And they're all just framing it as though Trump was like, he didn't even talk about 2020. He didn't even talk about, like it was rigged and stolen for him. He just says, we have some serious election problems here. Can you agree with that? They did agree with that in that 20-minute clip that we saw from all of the Democrats. Like it's convenient for them when it's convenient and then not. What's going on? Hey, Nathan, Hey, thought I'd share Ben's Pilled, which is distilled Mike Ben's commentary with illustration. Have you considered such use of illustrations for clips from your shows? I think I have seen this channel. And yeah, it's Mike Ben's and then people draw over it. Is he doing those? Or I can't illustrate anything, so not internally. But I'll have to check it out. Thank you, Nathan, for that. Seems like a good suggestion. Yeah, that could be good. I'll have to check those out. Mike Benz is a genius, so that sounds awesome. Thank you, Nathan. Hey, Barry, what a show last night, Rob. Didn't get to sleep till 2 a.m. Sheesh, me too, man. I was like jazzed after that show. We wrapped around like 12:30 something, 12:45 here, but I didn't go to sleep till like 2. It was like just like filled with energy. So thank you, Barry. The big can of worms has been opened and poured out indeed. Yes, never mind. As I mentioned, the Rubos had surgery today. Yes, I appreciate you mentioning that because I checked in on them this morning. And yeah, so friends, thank you for continuing to pray for Donald and Cheryl Lynn Rubo because the Rubos could use it. And here is the update that I got as of, wow, I just got a bunch of emails that just came in. Let's see. Where was this one? All right. So yeah, in surgery this morning, nurses are helping him get ready. Going down to pre-op, we are in God's hands now. That's from Cheryl Lynn. Okay, that was this morning at about 8:49 our time. So Donald's going in for surgery. And so once again, we send our prayers to him and to Cheryl Lynn. We ask our Heavenly Father to watch down upon them to make sure the surgery is the most perfect and beautiful surgery that can be had, that his guiding hand guides the surgeon's hands, that the healing energy of our Lord and Savior enters into Donald's body and connects all of the tissues, brings everything together that should be brought together, excises the bad things, and puts him on a path to righteous healing. We ask for healing energy for Cheryl Lynn, who is supporting him. Give her strength. Please give her guidance on how best to support Donald, and watch over all the surgeons, all the nurses, everybody in the room inside the hospital to make sure this is a perfect and healthy outcome so that he can return back to our Watcher fam and emerge stronger and healthier than ever before. We know that our Heavenly Father and Jesus can deliver this, and we ask all of this in Jesus' name. We pray, amen. For the Rubos. Man, amazing. So shout out to the Rubos. They're amazing people. All right, so Rhino Poop, if you speed read of that last federal election, which is about cloak and dagger stuff, you skipped over a paragraph with a sentence, which is relating to withholding of information. The regulation may sink Mr. Shadow Government. I did fly through that. It's kind of a big wieldy statute. Let's just do a Control F. Withholding. Where is that? Yeah, I thought it was in there, but I didn't see it right at the outset, so I kind of just flew by it. Yeah, annoying. Hey, what's going on? Thank you for that, Danny Murphy. What's up, Rhino Poop? Hey, celebrating daughter in labor and granddaughter number 6. His name will be Harry. Wishing you the best with the upcoming birth. Thank you, Rhino Poop, man. We appreciate that. Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, yeah, our internet is kind of crapping out right now. Hey, Rob, you've been buffering for the past 30 to 40 minutes. It's been tough on our end. Sorry about that. Yeah, what's going on? My bar's dropped. It's not good. It doesn't normally do that. I wonder what's going on. Thanks for the heads up on that, Larry. I'll have to diagnose when we're done here. Sorry about the buffering if you're experiencing it. We got Rhino Poop. In your speed read, you skipped over that one. Yeah, I couldn't find it immediately, so we just read through it quickly. But thank you for that, Rhino Poop. And friends, thank you so much for sending in those donos. We got Turbo and SW686 is here saying switch to fingerprint matching, not signature. Fingerprints, yeah, just scan it, man. ID signatures are obviously not good enough. Here's another one from Turbo. Rob, there's a statute in Florida that fits the Hillary and the hoaxers like a glove. They'd have to fight for their freedom in a jury of Florida Gators. The law is titled Corruptly Influencing Voting. The Florida AG or any state attorney can indict hoaxers, and auto-pen pardons wouldn't have any effect there. Yeah, we need our state prosecutors. Where's our Fannie Willis? Where is our Alvin Bragg, except competent and not sleeping with their staff? When they used the FBI to frame Trump and MAGA candidates as traitors, that was an attempt to deceive Florida voters using corruption. You cannot use the FBI to frame your political opponents. This can also apply to the 51 IC clowns that knowingly deceived Florida voters about the Hunter laptop on the basis of their former membership in the official IC community. That's also corruption. SOL cannot help them because it's ongoing. They never stop pushing the Russian hoax. Here's the statute, Rob. What say you? I love it. Yeah, I mean, we are largely talking about state level crimes. The reason being is because we don't really know where these people were when they were doing a lot of these things. Like if you charge them in DC, you know, it's going to be federal. But if they're in the Eastern District of Virginia working at an FBI facility there, maybe you hit them there. But the other reason, like to be federal in Florida, would be because they're the victim of the conspiracy. So the impact of the conspiracy reached into Florida. So charge them federally there. But like, what's the nexus? Like, I think the main concern is how does Florida get jurisdiction over that case? Like when they charged Trump in Georgia or New York, like he was physically there. Like he went down there, he did things, they hit him with RICO, like this ongoing conspiracy. So he was physically there. Did this lady ever go down to Florida? Was there any actual like nexus of physical conduct in Florida? Or would they have to just use the victim statute to say that he was like, they were reaching in there in order to interfere with the election? Is it just an informational violation? Like they're corruptly deterring voting, but it didn't happen inside of Florida? I think the jurisdictional component is going to be the toughest hurdle, but I don't think it's insurmountable. And they can defend themselves after they've been charged. Hey, switch to fingerprint or matchings, not signatures, from SW686 in the house. Amazing. And good stuff. Yeah, and I saw this one from Rick, man. Thank you, Rick, for flagging this one for us. We may want to come back on that one. Court of Appeals decided and overturned that the New York Times does not have the right to unfettered access to the Pentagon. Yeah, remember they said you have to let all the journalists into the Pentagon and take them wherever they want. And so they appealed that, and the court just said, wrong. The emergency motion for a stay by the DOD or DOWAR has been granted, and the lower level judge's order has been stayed. Blown out. Journalists blown out. Go cry harder outside the Pentagon. All right. Don't need you inside. This isn't your building. It's their building. So goodbye. Zone Girl, praying for the Rubos for a successful placement of a stint. Lord, watch over them. Give them strength. Thank you, C. Reed's mom. Thank you guys for praying for them. Very good people. Very good people. And have sent a lot of very powerful prayers to me and to us specifically and our family. And I know to many others out there as well. Hey, that's us right there. So don't forget baby shower day tomorrow. tr.ee/baby Gouveia. You can also check us out there. That's my beautiful wife from our American Independence Day celebration outfit. Man, we look so good. All right, so that was a lot of fun. Yeah, hopefully the internet was a little bit better, but I am noticing that it's not looking good right now, which is weird. All right, so, and I think locals is probably rougher than maybe YouTube is. Let's see what YouTube's showing me. All right, anyways, we're wrapping it up. So we'll leave here and we'll have ourselves a beautiful rest of our Fridays. And we'll figure out what's going on with the interwebs. And then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll get into it again. We'll have a virtual stream. And yeah, Pod Text Mama. Yeah, zero mainstream media coverage. They didn't cover Mullin's speech at all. Crazy. I want to know more about the Obama burn bag, says Pod Text Mama. Lionheart, thanks for all the in-depth of the unclassified docs. Nothing gets past you. Thank you. If Baby G is a boy, suggest the name is Judge. Judge Gouveia. It's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. It's a judge. Senator Mullin, what's to stop bad actors from using Homeland's machine training on machine vulnerabilities and then use those vulnerabilities? How will you monitor and enforce compliance in real time? There's no realistic means to correct results of fraud after it's occurred. From Lady Patriot. Good comment. Yeah, you can't sue. They just throw your case out. So what are you going to do? Fat Magician. Nobody in America really cares. Okay, somebody else from Fat Magician. All right, thanks for the comment over there. All right, so friends, we'll pause here on the day. It's been a beautiful stream. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Friday. I hope the rest of your day today and your weekend is amazing. Hopefully we see you tomorrow on the members only morning stream in the morning. And if not, we see you on the virtual baby shower because we're going to have some fun and have a great time talking about that. Oh, rub some dirt on it. 940 Mbps upload speed. I don't know what's going on. My internet's been wonky, actually, here lately. I don't know if it's us or if it's the provider, but we'll diagnose and we'll hopefully get it all fixed up for tomorrow. But we'll pause here. Thank you, Rub Some Dirt on It, for rubbing it in our faces. Friends, thank you for being here. Big thank yous to our amazing mods and meme smiths who keep things nice and orderly around here. We got Muffin Rando, we got John, we got Donut Mind Me. What's up to K Bean? Good to see Carrie B is in the house. 51K joining us. We got Neuro D, we got Janik, we got Dog Digger, we got Geegum Geegum, Elliot, Just Rhonda, and a bunch of amazing friends keeping things nice and orderly around here. And so once again, thank you for joining us. I hope your weekend is amazing if we don't see you tomorrow and then you return back on Monday. Do you hear that? That is Leaf Blower Guy right outside. He returns to say goodbye to all of us. What a nice special appearance from Leaf Blower Guy. So we'll pause here, my friends. Hopefully you come back and join us on the next one, because in order to do this appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful weekend. Have a great time, and we'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chatting line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. Bring a friend who's ready to care.